My Star Empire. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, Human Supreme Scientific Committee, third update for Dan. Your Majesty, you can rest now. It will take another 5 days to reach the target. Tianyi stood behind Mingze. There won't be any problem with the jump point we chose. Mingze was a little worried, afraid that they would hide another planet as soon as they jumped out. No, Your Majesty, we launched 100 unmanned deep space exploration ships half a year ago. The equipment carried by these exploration ships will conduct a scan every time they arrive at a galaxy. Our choice of jump point is based on the data sent by these deep space exploration ships. Tianyi's words made Mingze feel relieved. After confirming that there was no problem, Mingze turned and walked towards his bedroom. He was a little tired after not sleeping for a night. At this time, the artificial light in the sky gradually illuminated the entire sky, as if the sun that had just risen illuminated the entire city, and a new day began. Just as the Empire's planetary fleet flew towards the first target point, close to the center of the Milky Way, a huge metal sphere, the size of a star, was floating quietly in the middle of a star system. Countless spacecraft were entering and exiting the opening of the sphere. In the orbit of the metal sphere, 8 life planets wrapped in metal shells are slowly revolving around the metal sphere, and each life planet is surrounded by 3 huge pyramid-shaped buildings. The entire star system seems busy, but there is no life, and it is inexplicably filled with strange tranquility. 10 years have passed, and all populations have begun to be awakened to prepare for hyperspace threats. The degree of preservation of civilization is 99.98711%, and 56.1 billion people can be awakened. The automatic construction ship has completed the construction of the settlement, and various industrial equipment has been in place. The material storage rate has reached 30.11%. The population awakening program meets the standards and starts, as the metal plate in the huge metal sphere lit up white light. In the 561 dormant halls in the huge sphere comparable to a star, the hundreds of millions of dormant chambers that were secretly arranged all lit up green lights at the same time. The hibernation capsule slid along the track to their own independent cabins. Everything had been prepared for the sleeping people in these independent cabins. The huge rooms of hundreds of square meters were equipped with all kinds of equipment, from leisure and entertainment to eating, drinking, and defecating. As the hibernation capsule arrived at the infirmary of the independent cabin, a mechanical arm stretched down from the roof, opened the hatch of the hibernation capsule and lifted it to the ceiling. Ahem, a human hand stretched out from the hibernation capsule and grabbed the outer eaves of the hibernation capsule, and then a man climbed out of the hibernation capsule. The man looked exactly like a human, even his eyes were black. Intelligence brain, how long have we been in hibernation this time? The man asked in Chinese. Dear President, we have been in hibernation for a total of 38,100 years this time. The answer of the intelligent brain rang in the room. It has been 38,100 years since the last disaster. It feels like it was just yesterday. I wonder how these civilizations in the Milky Way have developed. The man took out a can of freshly made beverage from the refrigerator and sat on the sofa. Report on the current status of the robots we sent out to transform the planets, and our seeding plan, the man ordered the intelligent computer while drinking a drink. The Indian technology company we established to carry out the planet transformation mission has currently transformed 520,000 life planets, and 520 of the 10,000 transformation fleets have now lost contact. These 520,000 transformed life planets have developed to the primitive period of our mother planet, and the plan you arranged to spread the seeds of humanity on these planets has also been completed, but unfortunately, due to some special reasons, natural disasters and wars, very few of the human seeds we spread out finally took shape, and a small number of human branches have mutated. The intelligent computer slowly spoke after simplifying the completion of the mission over the past 30,000 years. Well, it's okay. I don't know how far these civilizations have developed. I'm really curious, but the current matter is to solve this hyperspace threat first. The man touched his chin and said, let's prepare to let those guys who have been sleeping for tens of thousands of years recover. We are going to have a good time with this hyperspace invader. It seems that it is time to reshuffle the Milky Way again. The man drank his drink, but his eyes looked at the distant starry sky through the thick shell of the star fortress. Speed up the awakening speed. It's time for our Supreme Scientific Committee of Humanity to come out to save the world. The man stood up and walked out of the room. As 56.1 billion people gradually woke up, the entire star fortress regained its vitality. A blue flame lit up, and the entire star fortress was instantly ignited and restored to the appearance of a star. The metal shells of the 8 metal-covered life planets floating in the star orbit also opened to one side, revealing half of the planet facing the burning star. As spaceships flew out of the star, 15 billion people were settled on the 8 metal-covered life planets, and a disguised Supreme Scientific Committee of Humanity appeared in the universe. The star fortress, surrounded by star flames, is simply playing the pig to eat the tiger to the extreme. Any civilization that dares to underestimate this scientific committee will feel what it feels like to hide a wall. At this time, the civilizations around the scientific committee do not know what kind of huge and terrifying civilization has awakened next to them. This civilization will become their nightmare in the future, dividing line. In the star field of the Pilgrim civilization, in the orbit of a planet, 6 reinforced motherships gathered together, followed by 12 Pilgrim cruisers. This gathered fleet is receiving supplies from a mothership wrapped around the planet. Thin metal tubes extend from the mothership wrapped around the planet to the 6 motherships ready to set off. Prophet, isn't it too early for us to attack the Davis Fortress in the solar system now? Why don't we accumulate more strength? A high priest stood in front of the prophet and suggested carefully. No. I feel that the power of the Davis Security Council is growing. The God of the Void told me that I must resolve the threat in front of me as soon as possible, and then I can look for the escaped artificial intelligence life with peace of mind. The prophet shook his head. That artificial intelligence is the biggest threat. Once they start to develop, the mechanical forces with no life limit, the ability to think, and endless fleets will be the enemy of the entire universe. Once we can't control its spread, our ascension will stop in the Milky Way, the prophet sighed. Ask for leave. The 2 days of Mid-Autumn Festival are super busy, and I have to take a train tomorrow. Today and tomorrow, 3 updates a day. Chapter 227. First leap out of hyperspace. Our fleet will set off now, the high priest nodded. After the 6 motherships led the 12 cruisers to resupply, they jumped into hyperspace towards the solar system. The Empire, which had no idea what was going to happen in the original star field, was now preparing for its first jump out of hyperspace. The shields of all planets had been opened to the maximum, and the defensive weapons on the planets were all turned on and charged. The warships on New Star also started their engines, intending to swarm out of the port of New Star if they found something wrong. In the orbital space station on Sith Star. Your Majesty, we have 10 minutes to jump out of hyperspace, Tianyi said, standing behind Mingze. Mingze clenched his hands together, and his thumbs kept crossing back and forth, obviously a little nervous. Well, notify everyone to prepare for impact, Mingze nodded calmly. 10 seconds to jump out of hyperspace, an officer shouted at the monitor. 10, 9, 8, 2, 1, jump out of hyperspace. As the officer shouted, the purple starry sky in front of Mingze was suddenly blocked by a huge planet. Everyone was frightened by the sudden appearance of the planet, but fortunately there was still a long way to go. Tianyi, is this the jump point set by the deep space exploration ship? After scanning, Mingze's face was full of black lines. It was just a little bit away from colliding. If the planet under his feet jumped out of hyperspace an hour earlier, the two would undoubtedly collide. That's right, Your Majesty. Every jump will be calculated by me. With the distance between us and this planet now, even if we stay here for 10 years, there will be no impact on both sides, and the orbits of these planets are all in my calculations, so you can rest assured, Tianyi explained with a chuckle. Report the losses on each planet, Mingze ordered into the communicator. Everything is normal on Earth, no damage has occurred. Everything is normal on the new home planet, no damage has occurred. Everything is normal on New planet. A soldier was seriously injured by a falling steel pipe, no damage is good. Mingze breathed a sigh of relief. As for the soldier who was hit by the steel pipe, he chose to ignore it. Start charging the hyperspace engine, Mingze turned his head and said to Tianyi with satisfaction. Yes, sir. Tianyi's figure disappeared. On the Earth, New Home Planet and New planet, which are located in the orbit of the stars of this new galaxy, The huge solar arrays began to move slowly against the rotation of the planets to ensure that they can always face the stars. Dear citizens of the Empire, we have arrived in a new star system. Our planet will stay in this star system for up to 15 days to recharge. The light you feel now is no longer artificial light. It comes from the Beta V031 star in this star system. I hope everyone can spend a brand new 15 days under the sun. At this time, on Earth and the new home planet, people heard the information from the radio and left their consciousness and entered the game equipment. They opened the windows or walked to the streets and looked up at the sky. A huge blue sun has appeared in the sky, and the sky is divided into thousands of small pieces by a piece of fuzzy honeycomb structure. The edges of these honeycomb structures are the solar arrays that absorb solar energy. From time to time, there will be a piece of gray in the sky. That is where the planetary shield module is located. In order to ensure the safety of the planet, this shield module is indispensable, even if it will cause a big hole in the sky. However, since they have left hyperspace, the shields of the 4 planets have been shut down in order to save energy. At this time, countless transport ships from the orbital space stations of the 4 planets sailed out of the ports of the space stations and flew towards the planets in the star system. These transport ships carry disassembled mining components. After arriving at those planets, it only takes 3 hours to build these specially modified mines. When these ships arrive at each planet, the prospecting drones will detect the location of all useful mineral veins on the entire planet within half an hour. These ships carrying mining components will fly above the mineral veins, assemble the mining components in the cargo hold together, and start mining on the spot. On Nuwa Star, mining ships transformed from transport ships also took off from the underground port and flew to the nearest asteroid belt. These mining ships are the result of the Empire's utilization of waste from asteroid mining stations. After adopting the shipborne method, although the maintenance cost and the number of staff of these mining stations have become very high, they are exchanged for flexible mining time and mining locations that can be changed at any time. When these ships arrive at the asteroid, the mining laser will first crush the mineral deposits on the asteroid, and the ship will then suck the slag into the cabin for refining. The refined minerals will be directly transported back to the warehouses on the 4 planets, and the waste slag will be returned to the asteroid. In the viewing room of the Sith Orbital Elevator Space Station, Li Mingze pointed out the window and saw a dense crowd of spaceships flying in the distance. What are these spaceships for, Your Majesty? According to the arrangement of Lord Tianyi, during the time we are charging, our mining spaceships and portable mines will carry out destructive mining in this galaxy, in just 13 days of stay, excluding the time on the road. For the mining ships, these mining ships and mines will be able to bring us countless minerals, which will be directly used in the construction of orbital buildings on various planets after being refined. With the materials continuously sent back by these spaceships, construction robots and construction ships have now started construction outside various planets, continuing to improve solar arrays and defense modules. And our docks also have enough resources to build new battleships. A technician stood behind Li Mingze and explained in detail. How are the Sith seeds I asked you to bury under these planets? Li Mingze asked with narrowed eyes. The Sith seeds have been deployed and will start working after we leave this galaxy, the scientist nodded. On a mining planet in this galaxy, a spaceship that was a size larger than an average transport ship arrived at a huge crater. As the deck of the transport ship opened, giant centipede-shaped machines with huge drills on their heads lined up and walked off the ship. These giant mechanical centipedes were what the Empire called the Sith seeds. As the drills on the heads of these Sith seeds began to work, these mechanical centipedes dug dozens of large holes on the ground and drilled into the ground. Chapter 228 Seed of Empire. After their entire bodies have been drilled into the ground, the mechanical centipede's hind legs will collapse the hole they entered through, covering up all traces. These mechanical centipedes quickly drilled into the ground, and soon they reached a depth of more than 1,000 meters before they stopped moving. These Sith seeds will be activated after the Imperial fleet leaves this galaxy. The activated mechanical centipedes will begin to dig for minerals, and then continue to refine these minerals to create a new mechanical centipede. The new mechanical centipede will then dig and replicate, and the number of mechanical centipedes will increase exponentially. These mechanical centipedes will eventually devour the entire planet until all the useful minerals on the planet have been devoured. They will then stop replicating themselves and begin to reorganizing into small spaceships that fly into the planet's orbit. The small spaceships that fly into orbit will reorganize again until they finally build a Sith Seed spaceship with no shields but only a hard shell. The Sith Seed spaceship, which will be extremely large in size, is equivalent to carrying all the useful minerals on the entire planet. They will follow the footsteps of the Imperial fleet and fly slowly behind the Imperial fleet. In this way, when the Empire finds a new settlement, the Sith Seeds sown along the way will turn the resources of one planet after another into Sith Seed ships that will fly to the Empire's new settlement. With these resources, the Empire's development in the new settlement will be as rapid as if it had a rocket booster. While the Empire's planetary fleet was busy charging and mining, the atmosphere in the solar system was a little heavy. Since the weight of a star system in the Pilgrim civilization star field suddenly decreased by half, the Davis Council has noticed something is wrong. Now the calm in the solar system is like the calm before the storm. The type has been strengthened again to reach a diameter of 1,500 kilometers in the Davis Fortress. The directors of the Davis Council gathered in the holographic conference room. According to the latest intelligence we have obtained, the civilization called the Sith Empire has run away with the mother planet. A director shook his head helplessly. Are they retreating in the face of the Pilgrim civilization? And how could their technology take away the mother planet? A director said angrily and puzzled. They just made a small-scale transformation of the planet, installed shields and hyperspace generators on the planet, which is easy for us, a director explained to him. Forget it, let them go. With that little population and equipment, we can't help much. We can just take over its star field. The chairman of the council made the final decision. Everyone stopped talking, and soon, hundreds of transport ships flew from the Davis Security Council star field to the Empire's star field. The annexation fleet located in the former Empire was about to merge with the Davis Security Council's transport fleet, but when it jumped into hyperspace, it was suddenly pulled out by an unknown force. Hello, unknown band and civilization, I am the great void merchant Feng. Spike, do you know that it is very impolite to fly around in other people's star fields, Feng? Spike said with a smile, touching his long nose on his face. What other people's star field? This is already our Davis Security Council's star field. If you disagree, you are the enemy of our Davis Security Council, the commander of the Davis annexation fleet said disdainfully. However, he completely ignored who pulled them out of hyperspace. Just because he hadn't seen the so-called Void Merchant spaceship yet, his tone was extremely arrogant. He didn't dare to hide and see how powerful he was. No, the 100 star systems here are all my Feng. Spike's property. Unless you kill me, don't think about taking these star systems from me, Feng. Spike said and turned off the stealth device of the spaceship. A 10,000-kilometer-long U-shaped golden spaceship appeared in the starry sky. This huge spaceship, which is close to the diameter of the Earth, just quietly floated in the starry sky. Come on, I'll stop here and let you fight, Feng. Spike sneered and touched his long nose and said disdainfully. You asked for it, the commander of the annexation fleet sneered. They had encountered spaceships as big as the planet before. They had destroyed 2 motherships of the Pilgrim civilization. Fire at full strength, the commander waved his hand, and the 6 battleships, 50 cruisers, and hundreds of destroyers of the annexation fleet fired at the same time. Golden beams of light shot towards Von Spike's ship. The secondary guns of Davis's warship did not stop either. Small secondary guns popped out from Davis's warship and fired golden energy balls towards Von Spike's ship. Countless attacks fell on Von Spike's ship, but they did not even cause a ripple on his ship's shield. We void merchants have been wandering in the Milky Way for 20,000 years. If we didn't have some self-defense skills, how could we have survived with so many good things until now? Von Spike showed a sneer on his face. Why didn't our attack hit his spaceship at all? The commander of the Davis annexation fleet grabbed an officer beside him and asked. Sir, our detector just detected that the shield level of this spaceship is much higher than the total of all the spaceships, space stations, and planetary shields of our Davis Council. Even if it doesn't automatically restore the shield and stays there for us to fire, we won't be able to break this turtle shell in hundreds of years. The officer wiped the cold sweat and explained. What should we do now? The commander of the Davis annexation fleet was a little frustrated. The gap between the enemy and us was too big. He really couldn't bring up the idea of resistance. This was also the first time in the Davis Council's tens of thousands of years that they encountered a civilization that was so much stronger than themselves. It's easy to deal with. Since you have angered me, Then use all your spaceships to buy your lives. In the end, I will arrange a spaceship to send you back." The figure of Von Spike suddenly appeared in a holographic projection of the Davis flagship. In the video, Von Spike raised a small button in his hand with a sly smile and pressed it gently. Hundreds of rays of light enveloped all the warships of the Davis Council. "Sir, our weapon system is offline. The propulsion system is offline. The hyperspace system is offline. All internal hatch controllers are offline. The reactor power is locked." An officer turned back to the commander in despair. We agree." Commander Davis slammed the console as if to vent his anger, and reluctantly sat back in his seat and lowered his proud head. Chapter 229 Redemption Money, third update for Dandandan. "Not bad, not bad. You are very sensible. I will forgive your disrespect." Von Spike smiled and turned off the communication. "Not bad, not bad. I have earned a small fleet for nothing. I can sell it and earn some energy coins." Von Spike rubbed his hands and clicked on the console a few times. Then, countless disc-shaped drones flew out of his spaceship and flew towards the Davis fleet locked by the beam. The mechanical arms extended from these discs and locked themselves to the outside of the airlock door of the Davis battleship. The airlock door of the battleship opened automatically after being covered by the drones, and a bionic robot walked out of the drone. "Please cooperate with our actions. All members of the battleship follow us to meet the spaceship," the bionic robot kept shouting and spread to the battleship. Because the Davis battleship was highly automated, there were only a few people in each cruiser, and only dozens of people in the battleship, so the drones sent by Von Spike easily took the Davis crew to his Void Merchant ship. "Ha, it's a pleasure to communicate with you. I hope we can have more business exchanges next time." Von Spike was in a very happy mood, and his eyes narrowed into slight. Everyone secretly complained in their hearts, but dared not speak out. The robot drove Davis's crew into a small passenger ship. "See you next time." Von Spike waved at the porthole of the passenger ship, and the passenger ship started the engine and ejected from the merchant ship. Soon it opened a hyperspace and disappeared. A few hours later, a golden passenger ship appeared next to the solar system fortress. "Don't fire. Don't fire. We are the crew of Davis Fleet," the commander of the solar system annexation fleet, who had just arrived at the spaceship, hurriedly shouted to the space station through the communicator. The ion spear launchers that were originally charging stopped charging, but the muzzles were still aimed at the small spaceship in space. A moment later, 4 frigates flew out of the port of the solar system fortress and came to the side of the passenger ship. "Don't make any moves, we will start boarding immediately," the frigate sent a message to the passenger ship. "Received, we will not move," the commander of the annexation fleet said hurriedly. The 4 frigates slowly approached the passenger ship, and dozens of combat robots rushed into the passenger ship along the docking corridors. "Don't move. Don't move." Under the guns of the robots, everyone raised their hands. A few minutes later, the crew was taken into the fortress after being tested. The holographic projections of the 18 Davis Security Council directors had been waiting here for a long time. "Tell me what happened. Where did our fleet go?" a director asked with an annoyed expression. We encountered a civilization in the Sith Empire star field that called itself the Void Merchants. They also said that the Sith Empire's star field was already the property, and there, the commander of the annexation fleet told what happened one by one. "Void Merchants, why haven't we heard of them? Who are they?" A director touched his chin and asked in confusion. Hello, I heard someone calling me." A figure with an elephant nose face appeared beside everyone. "How did you get in?" The Security Council members were shocked. "The firewall of your space station is not very good. It took me less than a second to hack in." "Feng-en." Spike shook his head gently and wandered in the hall. Tisk, tisk, tisk. The space station is well built. Although the technology is a bit backward, it is still okay. Are you interested in selling it, Feng-en? Spike said as he reached out and touched the bulkhead of the fortress. "We can't sell it." The directors were a little angry, but they had no choice. After hearing the report from the commander of the annexation fleet, they felt the crushing of the technological strength of the Void Merchants. "I noticed that you are at war. Don't you really need to buy something from me? You know, I have a lot of good things here, Feng-en." Spike narrowed his eyes and tempted. "We are very curious, why don't you take it by force when you have such a strong strength? You know, this should be very easy for you," a director asked curiously. As soon as he finished speaking, the directors around him all looked at him as if he was an idiot. People wanted to do business, but you encouraged them to rob. The origin of our void merchants is quite complicated. Our race was born 100,000 years ago. After experiencing several disasters in the galaxy, we are tired of the days of intrigue and competition every day. Because our technological development has reached a bottleneck, we finally decided to have one void merchant ship per person, and everyone will travel the galaxy and the universe, see the countless civilizations and wonders in the universe, and obtain some technologies and items that we are interested in. You know, we all have a hobby of collecting Feng. Spike paused and continued, as for the question of why I don't rob, which you are curious about, it is because we, as an ancient relic civilization, have long looked down on these things. What we pursue is the pleasure brought by trading. What's more, our void merchants also have a history of tens of thousands of years, and our professional ethics are still trustworthy. Feng. Spike smiled and stood by the porthole in the hall. Tisk, 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 another guest is here. This is really fun. As soon as Von Spike finished speaking, 6 Silver Pilgrim motherships led 12 cruisers to appear outside the solar system fortress. The beam cannons on the motherships that had been prepared long ago, and the fortress cannons of the solar system fortress, began to shoot at each other. Huge white and golden beams of light illuminated the entire starry sky. After a violent tremor, the lights in the solar system fortress began to flicker, and the holographic projections of more than a dozen Security Council members became erratic. The fortress has been severely damaged. The enemy's weapons have broken through our shield. We can't hold on for long relying on the fortress's own armor. A Security Council member seemed to be reading some information and looked up after a moment. Once we lose the solar system fortress, our entire defense will collapse. Then the Pilgrim's fleet will be able to march straight in, the chairman of the Security Council said with a gloomy face. Before he finished speaking, a Pilgrim mothership outside caused a series of violent explosions under the attack of the fortress cannon, and the huge ship began to slowly break apart. There are still 5 motherships. We can't hold on. A director frowned and worried. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 The First Transaction. Tisk, tisk, tisk. It seems that your situation is not good. How about it? Have you thought it through? I have a lot of good things to sell here, Feng. Spike looked at the Security Council directors with a sly smile. Well, I think we need some help. The chairman of the Security Council glanced at the directors around him, nodded helplessly and said, Isn't that right? The goods sold by me, the great void merchant Feng. Spike, are all good goods, and I will never cheat anyone, Feng. Spike rubbed his hands. List the services you provide and the price information, the chairman of the Security Council said in a deep voice. Oh, I forgot, Feng. Spike embarrassedly summoned a holographic screen in the air. How about it? My products are very cost-effective. I guarantee you will be satisfied, Feng. Spike patted his chest after speaking. Orbital Assault Mechanical Core 100,000 energy coins per day. Ancient Civilization Frigate Formation 1 million energy coins per day. Ancient Civilization Destroyer Formation 10 million energy coins per day. Ancient Civilization Cruiser Destroyer Mixed Formation 100 million energy coins per day. Ancient Civilization Battleship Cruiser Mixed Formation 500 million energy coins per day. Ancient Civilization Dreadnought and Battleship Formation 1 million energy coins per day. Or you can adopt a barter method. One life planet is equivalent to 100 million energy coins. Von Spike squinted and read the price list on the screen. Your price is too expensive. You know that the annual energy production of an administrative planet is only 100,000 energy coins. And how do we know how strong the combat capability of your ancient civilization warships is? The chairman of the Security Council frowned. This is easy. At present, the 5 motherships facing you can be solved with a battleship cruiser mixed formation. I will charge you 500 million. I will pay you after the service. If you don't want to pay, it will be very interesting. After saying this, Feng and Spike narrowed his eyes. Okay. If you are willing to pay after the goods, we are willing to buy a battleship cruiser mixed formation for 1 day. The chairman of the Security Council nodded. Chairman, these are 5 life planets. A group of directors looked at the chairman with an expression that the boss was too expensive. The chairman waved his hand gently. He naturally had his own plans. There were still hundreds of life planets annexed from the surrounding low-level civilizations. There was no shortage of these few to buy the fleet. Anyway, he didn't plan to hand over those planets now. There was no reason to spit out the fat meat in his mouth. Very good, I just like you big customers. Feng and Spike smiled and nodded and disappeared on the spot. In just a moment, a U-shaped spaceship with a length of tens of thousands of kilometers appeared in the solar system. As the U-shaped spaceship opened its armor on the left side, a fleet of quaint ships flew out of Von Spike's spaceship. The golden hull was covered with mysterious patterns, which kept flashing, making the fleet look very mysterious. How is it? Doesn't this fleet look very awesome? Von Spike appeared in the fortress hall again. Yes, the council members were stunned, not because of anything else, but because the shapes of these warships were too quaint, and the hulls were full of historical atmosphere. The entire fleet looked like a refurbished version picked out from the scrap heap. No matter how you look at it, it's the kind of old ship that can be broken apart by a single shot, and it doesn't look like it can deal with the Pilgrim mothership at all. Are you sure these ships won't fall apart while flying? A director asked with a smile. Don't underestimate them. They are good goods I found in the ruins of an ancient civilization 10,000 years ago, although I don't know how many years they have. After tens of thousands of years of careful maintenance, they are still as good as new. Feng En. Spike looked at him with an expression that said, how dare you not believe me? This. Everyone had nothing to say. They could only wait and see the result, but they did not have much hope that this fleet would defeat the Pilgrim civilization fleet. Just watch, Feng En. Spike folded his hands in front of his chest and looked confident. This fleet of old ships consisting of 5 ancient civilization battleships and 10 ancient civilization cruisers slowly flew towards the Pilgrim civilization fleet. The Pilgrim civilization fleet obviously also discovered this approaching fleet and was shocked. Although this fleet looked unusually shabby on the surface, it exuded an aura that made the Pilgrim priests a little scared. Fire at full speed and get rid of this fleet first, a high priest ordered, suppressing the fear in his heart. The 5 Pilgrim motherships turned around and aimed their countless beam cannons at the approaching ancient civilization fleet. 5 huge beams of light shot out from the bellies of the 5 motherships, followed by hundreds of thousands of tiny beams of light. When the Davis Council members saw these beams bombarding the ancient civilization fleet, they felt that the fleet would not live long. Von Spike sneered softly. If this fleet was so vulnerable, would he have kept it for tens of thousands of years? Sure enough, the ancient civilization fleet that was hit by the saturation attack of the Pilgrim fleet was intact, as if it had never been attacked. Too strong, the Davis Council members were stunned. The shield of this ancient civilization fleet was even stronger than the dreadnought vessel they were building. You know, the dreadnought vessel built by their latest technology could not withstand such a powerful attack. The ancient civilization fleet, which was not affected in any way, continued to fly slowly towards the Pilgrim civilization, without firing a single shell or beam cannon during the period. Even the people in Davis Security Council began to doubt whether this fleet of masters was a group of tortoise shells without fighting power. Why did such advanced technology not fire at this distance? Don't worry, you will be shocked in a while. Von Spike seemed to see through the thoughts of the council members. The ancient civilization fleet did not disappoint Von Spike's expectations. When it approached the Pilgrim civilization mothership, it finally launched an attack. As the bow armor of the ancient civilization warship opened to both sides, red light began to flash inside. A moment later, thousands of huge metal spheres flew out from the ancient civilization fleet, among which the 500 metal spheres fired by the ancient civilization battleships were the largest. The surface of these spheres flashed with mysterious red lines and rushed towards the Pilgrim fleet. Just when everyone thought that these spheres were explosive shells, they found that they were wrong. Chapter 231 Ancient Civilization Battleship Formation. Dozens of metal blades much longer than the diameter of the metal balls suddenly popped out from the speeding metal spheres. Then the spheres began to spin wildly, and the flying metal blades were covered with a touch of red. The Pilgrim's shield did not block the red flashing shells at all. Countless shells penetrated the Pilgrim's mothership as if they were in an empty space. These spinning metal blades easily cut the hull of the Pilgrim's mothership like cutting tofu, and ran wildly inside the mothership. Hyperspace engine damaged, secondary weapon system offline, mining system offline, main thruster offline, main weapon offline, main reactor offline, mothership integrity 98%, 87%, 53%, accompanied by violent vibrations and explosions. The Pilgrim High Priest in the mothership looked at the red alarm prompts that popped up wildly on the holographic screens around him with despair. A more violent vibration came, and the mothership control room fell into complete darkness. The auxiliary reactor is offline. The main computer is off, the holographic screen disappeared in the air, and the alarm sounded. The entire control room was left with only the explosions and darkness from all around. The God of the Void leads me. The Pilgrim High Priest closed his eyes and frantically recited the contents of the Void Bible. With a strange sound from the control room bulkhead, a huge ball waving a red metal blade rushed into the control room. The Pilgrim High Priest in the control room did not even have time to open his eyes before he was twisted into a pile of disordered energy by the intruding metal ball and dissipated in the air. The light on the mothership that lost the control of the High Priest gradually disappeared, and the entire mothership disintegrated in the starry sky in a violent explosion. Thousands of metal balls rushed out of the wreckage of the 5 motherships and flew towards the nearby Pilgrim cruiser. When the many pilgrims in the Pilgrim cruiser saw that the situation was not right, they immediately started the battleship's hyperspace engine and escaped into hyperspace. Thousands of metal spheres that had lost their targets retracted their metal blades, gradually stopped spinning, and flew toward the ancient civilization warships. The Davis Security Council members who were watching the whole process were stunned with their mouths open. The Pilgrim fleet that had made them despair was easily destroyed by the ancient civilization fleet. As the metal spheres returned to the ancient civilization warships, the metal shields on the heads of the ancient civilization warships slowly closed again, and turned around and flew toward the void merchant ship of Von Spike. How is it? Isn't it very powerful? Von Spike raised his nose complacently. Yes, the fleet you are selling is too powerful. Everyone in the Davis Security Council unconsciously used honorifics. How much do you sell these ancient civilization warships for? The chairman of the Security Council asked cautiously. Well, the ancient civilization battleship costs 3 billion energy coins per ship, limited to 2 ships. The ancient civilization cruiser costs 1 billion energy coins per ship, limited to 6 ships. The ancient civilization destroyer costs 400 million energy coins per ship, limited to 12 ships. Feng En. Spike thought for a moment and quoted a price. This battleship requires 30 life planets, which is a bit too expensive. Davis, the chairman of the Security Council, hesitated. If it's too expensive, you don't have to buy it. You have also seen how powerful this ancient civilization battleship is, Feng En. Spike gently picked the dirt out of his nose and said contemptuously. Buy, let's buy. Can I discuss with others how much to buy? The chairman of the Security Council asked cautiously. Okay, but it's better to be quick. I'm very busy, Feng En. Spike nodded. The chairman of the Security Council and everyone turned off the holographic projection and entered the private channel. Feng En. Spike strolled away bored. Sir Von Spike, we want to buy 2 battleships and 6 cruisers. After a moment, the figures of the Security Council reappeared in the hall. Okay, 2 battleships plus 6 cruisers total 12 billion energy coins. Do you want to pay in cash or barter? Von Spike stretched out his hand and made a money-rubbing motion. Of course, barter. The chairman of the Security Council showed a mysterious smile. A total of 120 life planets, right? We will mark the location of the planets we will trade to you. The chairman of the Security Council took out the star map and began to mark them. If Li Mingze was here, he would definitely recognize that the marked planets were the star fields of the original Anglo military group, as well as the star fields of the Imbechi Alliance and another unknown country. These star fields have a common feature, that is, they are all star fields of low-level civilizations annexed by Davis, and they are also the star fields closest to the Pilgrim civilization. Obviously, the Davis Council also has the mentality of taking advantage of every opportunity. With powerful void merchants in front, the Davis Council will be safer, right? Their little calculations are crackling, but Feng En Spike obviously doesn't care. Maybe for him, the fleets of the Pilgrim civilization are too weak to withstand a single blow. At this time, inside the Pilgrim civilization void mothership, the prophet's closed eyes suddenly opened, revealing a gleam of light in his eyes. Oh? Another civilization has intervened, then let me have some fun with you, the prophet muttered to himself. The surfaces of several motherships that were originally suspended around the void mothership began to wriggle constantly, and their volumes continued to shrink. After shrinking to a certain extent, the shrunken motherships began to split into 2, and then 2 into 4. Compression is the essence. The prophet, who no longer follows the volume flow, seemed to have suddenly realized something, and controlled the pilgrim warships to shrink and split one after another. The Davis Council, who knew nothing about this, was smiling as they watched the 2 ancient civilization battleships and 6 ancient civilization cruisers flying out of the void merchant ship. Your warships have arrived, and it's time for me to leave. I wish you and the pilgrim civilization have fun. With that, Von Spike disappeared in the hall. Well? He actually left. Doesn't he want those life planets anymore? The council members were a little curious. And if he just left like that, what if the pilgrims gathered more fleets and made a comeback? Unlike the puzzled Davis Council members, Von Spike hummed a little song and returned to the star field of the Sith Empire. Looking at the life planet whose ecological environment had deteriorated a little, Von Spike frowned. But then relaxed again. Since the transaction had been completed, according to their void merchant style of doing things, they would never settle accounts. Since he didn't notice it at the time, he couldn't blame others. Von Spike hummed the song again, and his hands kept moving on the console. As he nodded, drones dragged huge metal rods and flew towards the life planet under the merchant ship. Chapter 232 Buying and Selling Planets, third update for the smoke format. Drones carrying huge metal rods spread out over the planet and flew towards the 6 ends of the planet. When all the drones were in place, 1/3 of the metal rods were inserted into the ground, and then all the metal rods began to flash with electric light. Let's start, Feng and Spike hummed a little tune and ordered the intelligent computer. After receiving the order, the electric light of the 6 huge metal rods crossed huge arcs in the air and intersected with each other. As the arcs intersected with each other, it was like a spherical cage with electric light covering the entire planet. The planet slowly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye until it finally became a fist-sized sphere. At this time, a drone came forward and wrapped the fist-sized planet in a transparent stand ball. Then it was placed on a base in the shape of a desk lamp that simulated the light of a star. Although as this small planet slowly rotated on the base, the simulated starlight shone on the small planet to form night and day. But in fact, time has stopped on this fist-sized planet. It cannot be said that it has stopped, but it has passed slowly at a speed that has slowed down by millions of times. In tens of thousands of years of cosmic adventures, Von Spike has explored dozens of ancient civilization ruins, if not hundreds. This set of equipment was found in one of the ruins of an ancient civilization. Its function seems to be to store planets. Unfortunately, Von Spike only found 5 complete sets of this magical equipment. He now plans to sell 5 planets first, and then return here to continue to load 5 planets and sell them. I remember that a civilization in a galaxy is in urgent need of life planets. Let me find it somewhere. A stream of data flowed rapidly in front of Von Spike. This was him using the intelligent brain in his brain to screen his memory bank. Got it, this is it. Von Spike sat back in the command chair with a sly smile. A star map suddenly appeared in front of him. As the star map continued to shrink, a galaxy that was constantly rotating appeared in the hologram. It was the Milky Way where Von Spike was currently. However, the hologram did not stop changing, but continued to shrink until the entire Milky Way was too small to be seen. Suddenly, among the countless galaxies in the hologram, a galaxy lit up, and a straight white line connected the Milky Way to this extragalactic galaxy. Calculating the path, the total length is 2.6 billion light-years, the estimated arrival time is 1 month, and the energy coins consumed are 260 million. As the voice of the intelligent brain in the bridge of the void merchant ship sounded, the hulls of the 2 sides of the merchant ship opened to the 4 corners, and the entire spacecraft turned into a huge amp, GT, and amp, LT, shape. Colorful lights began to appear around the void merchant ship, and the light around the merchant ship was distorted into rainbows. The 4-dimensional engine is activated, and the target is the Saha galaxy. The entire spacecraft disappeared in the prompt tone. With the demise of the Pilgrim civilization attack fleet, the offensive and defensive positions of the Pilgrims and the Davis Council were reversed. A huge sweeping fleet consisting of 2 ancient civilization battleships, 6 ancient civilization cruisers and Davis main fleet flew towards the star field of the Pilgrim civilization. The Pilgrim civilization, which had already discovered the whereabouts of the Davis fleet, immediately stopped expanding, quickly gathered together, and fled to the distant starry sky. 500 light-years away from their escape direction, Eva's artificial intelligence civilization was developing silently. At this time, The planetary fleet of the Sith Empire finally arrived at the second galaxy Tianyi. How many light years are we away from the original Sith galaxy? Mingze sat in front of the French window at his blue brick office. A yellow star hung in the sky outside the window, which was almost the same as the sun in the solar system. Your Majesty, we are 60 light years away from the Empire. Tianyi waved his hand and called out a star map. Have we determined our destination? Mingze asked casually. Now they are flying towards the center of the Milky Way along the route explored by the deep space exploration ship without any ideas. Yes, Your Majesty, look here. Tianyi pointed to a large gray star field on the star map. There's a large area here where no civilization has made any contact with the outside world. This means that this huge star field may be ownerless. They will become fertile land that provides nutrients for the growth of the empire. Tianyi smiled. As long as we have a goal, we will continue to move forward after 15 days of rest. Mingze nodded with satisfaction. Time passed quickly. 1 month later. In a star system filled with countless space stations in the central part of the Mingze galaxy, a golden U-shaped spacecraft appeared in the starry sky. The surrounding space stations seemed to be accustomed to it and did not make any defensive gestures. Hey, Feng. Spike, my old friend, did you bring anything good this time? A furry face appeared on the holographic screen in front of Feng. Spike. Of course, I brought 5 life planets you need, Feng. Spike reached out and took a rotating miniature planet from the shelf next to the seat. Too beautiful. We want this batch of life planets. The gorilla in the video was full of excitement. Let me make a deal first. 1 planet with life will cost 500 million energy coins. Feng and Spike's shrewd eyes narrowed. The extragalactic galaxy he chose belongs to the galaxy in the center of the universe. This galaxy was born very early, and thousands of civilization cycles have consumed all the resources of the entire galaxy. There are even fewer planets with life in this galaxy. As the Earthshaker civilization has ruled half of the Mingze galaxy, their technology is not enough to fly across the Milky Way, so they can only be trapped in this barren galaxy. It will take nearly 1,000 years and countless energy to transform a planet into a habitable planet with life. Compared with buying a planet with life, which only costs 400 to 500 million energy coins, it is much more cost-effective to buy a planet with life. Because of this, the Void Merchant, who had contacted the Earthshaker civilization several times and sold everything, became the only choice for the Earthshaker civilization, which had a lot of energy coins, to purchase planets. 500 million is a bit expensive. How about 400 million per planet? After all, I am also your old customer. The head of the Earthshaker civilization shook his head and said, how about this? Since you are my old customer, I will give you a 10% discount, and sell you a life planet for 450 million energy coins. Feng. Spike looked like he was being righteous. 450 million is 450 million, but are you willing to sell the intergalactic 4-dimensional engine? The head of the Earthshaker civilization rubbed his furry hands. He had longed for an engine that could travel through the endless void to reach other galaxies. Sure, cheaper, 1 trillion for you, Feng. Spike looked like he was making a fortune. Chapter 233, Sudden Disaster, 4th update for breakup. Forget it, it's too expensive. I'd better buy a planet. The head of the Earthshaker civilization hurriedly shook his head. Then there's nothing we can do. As usual, we pay for the goods. Send me the orbital position where you want to place the planet. Feng and Spike nodded regretfully. A few days later, in a star system, 5 drones flew to different orbits of the star system with fist-sized planets. With a flash of electric current, the 5 life planets returned to their original size. A group of drones swarmed over and dragged the metal rods on these life planets back to the Void Merchant ship. It cost 520 million energy coins to go back and forth. Buying these planets is almost free. 1 sold for 450 million energy coins, and 5 sold for 2.25 billion. After deducting the cost of going back and forth, the net profit is 1.73 billion star coins. Big profit. Feng and Spike rubbed his hands excitedly and pressed the jump button. The entire hull of the Void Merchant ship opened again, and the 4-dimensional engine started the spacecraft and instantly disappeared into the Mingze star system. While the Void Merchants were shuttling through the universe to sell planets, the Pilgrim civilization was being chased by the super fleet of the Davis Security Council. Fortunately, Several ancient civilization warships in the Davis Security Council's superfleet were old ships, and their flying speed was terrible, otherwise the Pilgrim civilization would have been caught up by the superfleet long ago. Every time the Pilgrim civilization arrived at a star system, the Pilgrim battleships split from the mothership would wrap up a planet in the star system in groups of 4, and then transform it into the material they needed after entering the hyperspace and transmit it to the Void mothership. New prototypes of Pilgrim battleships were constantly being manufactured under the belly of the Void mothership, so although the Pilgrim civilization was constantly escaping, the expansion speed of its fleet did not slow down at all. It even reduced the time for each spacecraft to drag the planet to and from the star system. In addition, with the splitting of all the motherships, the construction speed of the new Pilgrim battleships was much faster than the construction speed of the original motherships. The strength of the Pilgrim fleet did not decrease but increased during the period of escape. The Davis Security Council, which had been using gravity detectors to observe the Pilgrim civilization, naturally discovered the growing strength of the Pilgrim fleet. Helplessly, the Davis Security Council once again extended its claws to the surrounding star systems in order to obtain more resources to expand the Security Council's fleet. Soon, the territory of the Davis Security Council began to expand continuously, and countless low-level civilizations fell into the clutches of the Davis Security Council. The primitive civilization planets that were supposed to be protected were also captured by the Davis Marines and became resource stars for the Security Council. However, all this has little to do with the Sith Empire. The Sith Empire, which entered hyperspace for the 4th time, is already 120 light-years away from the original star field. With such a long distance, even the Pilgrims cannot rush to the Empire in a short time. Your Majesty, we are about to jump out of hyperspace. It is only 200 light-years away from the uninhabited star field we are interested in, and it is about 23,000 light-years away from the center of the Milky Way. Tianyi appeared in front of Mingze, who was resting with his eyes closed. Oh, it's time to jump out of hyperspace again. Mingze opened his eyes lazily. It was too boring to fly in hyperspace. Countdown to jump out of hyperspace. 3, 2, 1. As the countdown ended, the purple sky in front of Mingze turned into a bright yellow nebula. Suddenly, a violent vibration came from under Mingze's feet, and the space station he was in began to shake violently. Your Majesty, it's bad. We were attacked. Tianyi's expression suddenly became a little flustered. At this time, the picture was switched to the perspective in the galaxy, and it can be seen that one after another, the high-speed spacecraft crashed into the shields of the Earth and the new home planet because they did not stop in time. The violent explosion caused by the collision of the spacecraft made the shields of the planets flicker continuously. As more spacecraft failed to break and continued to crash into the shields of the two planets, the violent explosion finally tore the entire planet shield apart. The blue shield flickered a few times and then shattered into dots of starlight. Without the shield, the remaining spacecraft broke through the biological material shield on the outer layer of the planet and plunged into the planet. After breaking through the planet's shield, these spacecraft had violent friction with the atmosphere, and the entire spacecraft turned red. At such a close distance, the protective weapons in the orbits of the planets had no time to stop, and only the anti-aircraft guns installed in the planets could play a little role. However, these anti-aircraft guns prepared for fighters seemed so pale and powerless in front of countless large spaceships. The flames of explosions in the air could not delay the fall of these spaceships, and even their shells could not be damaged. Dozens of spaceships fell towards the city on the ground with flames, and the red light produced by the burning dyed the sky red. The people in the city screamed and quickly got on their own hovercrafts to escape from the city. Fortunately, the hovercrafts have become the standard equipment of every family, allowing most citizens to escape the range of the falling spaceships. With waves of violent collisions, dozens of spaceships were inserted headfirst into the ground. The buildings of the entire city were shattered by the huge shock wave, and skyscrapers fell diagonally on the crashed spaceships. What attack? Mingze looked at the red light of the space station with a shocked face. If it was an ordinary attack, it would never be possible to cause such a big vibration. Your Majesty, an unknown fleet appeared at the location where we jumped out. These fleets did not stop in time and crashed into the Earth and our new home planet. A stream of data flowed through Tianyi's eyes. Didn't you say it was absolutely safe and there was no problem? Mingze frowned. Your Majesty, this is a human factor. The deep space exploration ship did not find any traces of spacecraft in this galaxy. And who knows why they appeared in the orbit where we appeared by coincidence when the star system is so large. Tianyi pouted a little aggrieved. Report the damage. Li Mingze stood up and walked towards the command center. Your Majesty. The planetary shields of our Earth and new home planet have been overloaded and burned, and the engineering team is urgently repairing them. The planetary shields have also damaged an area of thousands of square kilometers, and it will take a lot of time to grow again. A city on the ground was completely destroyed, and the surrounding underground cities also partially collapsed. The death toll was 169,657, of which 122,513 were slaves. Tianyi looked a little reluctant. Well, some people may think that the former empire's territory was already very large. According to my calculations, the original empire's star field only occupied 1/25 millionth of the Milky Way. Yes, it was that small. When I finished coding at night, I found that the five brothers Wuming, and Wuming had rewarded a helmsman. I will add another chapter for him tomorrow. Chapter 234 Biological Civilization. The whole fleet crashed. Li Mingze frowned as he walked. No, the half of their spaceships that didn't crash stopped in the orbit of the Earth and the new home planet, and didn't make any unusual moves. Tianyi shook his head. A moment later, Li Mingze came to the control room of the new home planet orbital defense space station. Long live His Majesty! Everyone in the control room stood up and saluted. Sit down. What's the situation of that fleet now? Li Mingze waved his hand and came to the control console. Your Majesty, the enemy's fleet has shut down all the thrusters and lights and stayed in place, and the ship-borne weapons have also turned back and are not pointing in our direction. Before the officer finished speaking, he saw a holographic projection of a white flag raised on one of the enemy's warships. Is this surrendering? Li Mingze was a little curious. But soon Li Mingze understood why these spaceships surrendered so obediently. 20 huge Imperial battleships gradually showed their hideous figures from the other side of these spaceships. Although the fleet of the unknown civilization has an absolute advantage in numbers, each of the unknown civilization's spaceships is only about 600 meters long. The weapons on the spaceships are not only low-level but also pitifully few. It is conceivable how weak their combat effectiveness will be. Therefore, although the number of unknown civilization's spaceships is large, their power is far less than that of the Empire's battleship fleet. Not to mention the 4 planets in front of them covered by shields and orbital defense space stations. Your Majesty, the other fleet has sent a communication request to talk to you. An officer suddenly turned his head and said to Li Mingze. Please answer it, Li Mingze said calmly. The upper body of a middle-aged human woman with long black hair appeared on the central screen of the control room. Dear unknown civilization, hello. I am Queen Filia of the Principality of Ongi. We accidentally hit your spaceship. We are deeply sorry for the damage caused. Please accept our most sincere apologies. Filia bowed deeply. We were being chased by them, and we were in a panic. At this time, they still thought that they had crashed into an extremely large spaceship. The shields and defense modules attached to the surface of the Earth and other planets made these planets look like a huge transport ship. Li Mingze was shocked. The intelligent race of this civilization was actually human? Could it be that there were other races like humans in the Milky Way, besides the Empire and the Earth? First, accept our Marines to board the ship. The Empire will take over your spaceship. After receiving Li Mingze's eye signal, the officer edited the information and replied back. Okay, Queen Filia was stunned for a moment and then nodded. At this point, surrender was their best choice. Soon, countless landing ships flew out of the fortress of New Wastar. Tens of minutes later, the fleet of unknown civilization, which had been completely controlled by the Empire, flew into the port of New Wastar under the watchful eyes of a group of battleships. Along the way, Queen Filia looked at the huge port buildings passing by the fleet with a shocked face. It was unbelievable that this civilization had built such a huge port inside the entire planet. If nothing unexpected happened, the 4 huge spherical spaceships that suddenly appeared in front of their fleeing fleet should have been transformed from the planet by the civilization. As the fleet slowly moved forward, it finally arrived at the dedicated isolation port inside the port. As the huge gate of the isolation port slowly fell, rows of huge beam cannons in the isolation port aimed at the fleet suspended in the port. And dozens of gunboats also floated above the fleet of unknown civilization, and one by one, the cannons were aimed at the main weapons on the fleet spacecraft. A moment later, Queen Filia and her guards walked down the flagship under the escort of the Imperial Marines. Mingze had replaced the Advent stand-in and came to the isolation port in power armor, with a black helmet covering his face. "Hi, Your Majesty, the Great Emperor, hello, we are the Principality of Tianyi who is fleeing. Please let us go because we have also lost half of our people." Queen Filia came to Mingze and knelt on one knee. Apparently, before getting off the ship, the Imperial Marines had already explained the relevant matters to Filia. "You know, we lost nearly 170,000 people, and the entire city and underground buildings were destroyed. The planetary shield was also damaged for hundreds of square kilometers. The losses you caused are incalculable, and they cannot be solved with just 2 sentences from you," Mingze sneered. "Our civilization only has this little population and fleet left. Can you please let us go?" A tear mark crossed Filia's face. "Why was your civilization forced to have all its people board the spaceship to escape?" Mingze frowned. "Our civilization is located on an ordinary land planet 300 light-years away from here. All the people live happily and our civilization has also developed manned spacecraft that can enter the starry sky. With the development of technology, we have also developed the first hyperspace engine that can enter hyperspace. Since then, our development has been smooth sailing, but no extraterrestrial civilization has contacted us until one day they came to one of our colonized galaxies. All my people in that colonized galaxy were wiped out, and they were all used as food." Filia's tears burst out like a dam bursting. "They?" Mingze grasped the key point of Filia's words. "Yes, they. Our scientists finally figured out why no extraterrestrial civilization has contacted us all the time. It turns out that all around us are their territories, and all the civilizations in this star field that have not yet developed hyperspace technology are their free-range food. No, not food, but snacks." Queen Filia showed a look of fear. "What are they?" Mingze felt something was wrong. Could it be that these unknown territories were the uninhabited star field that he and Tianyi had set their eyes on? It is very strange that no civilization in that uninhabited star region came out to contact other civilizations in the Milky Way. You know, it is impossible for so many civilizations to hide themselves. There will always be 1 or 2 civilizations that will jump out. We call them biological civilizations, according to the discovery of our scientific expedition team in an alien site. They were originally humans who looked exactly like us, but later for unknown reasons, they took the path of biology. This civilization began to modify its own genes frantically until they transformed themselves into monsters. This biological civilization with a strong body began to try to transplant a devouring gene found on alien creatures into their own bodies. They want to strengthen themselves by devouring. Filia seemed to recall something disgusting. Chapter 235 The Corruptor. Later, although this civilization successfully transplanted the devouring gene into their bodies to greatly enhance the individual strength and lifespan of the entire race, they later discovered that their genes would collapse once every nearly 100 years. The first collapse almost caused the extinction of this civilization, but they accidentally encountered a human civilization that was almost the same as their race before the devouring gene was transplanted. After devouring the people of that race, they found that the collapse of their genes seemed to be prevented. Since then, they have been unstoppable, constantly looking for human civilizations with the same original genes as theirs, and then enslaving them, using the humans of this civilization as their food. Although some of them with conscience wanted to rely on mindless clones to solve their food problem, unfortunately the experiment failed, and the clones failed to prevent their genes from collapsing. For their own survival, this biological civilization began to keep humans in captivity, and then harvest them after their population grew to a certain size. Filia's body trembled slightly. After the first colony was attacked, we began to build spaceships frantically. For some reason, they seemed to have missed the time to harvest us. They started to head towards our home planet only after we completed the migration of most of the population. Although our speed was fast enough, we were still caught up by this biological civilization. With more than half of the spaceships sacrificed, the rest of us came to this galaxy in a panic. You know what happened next? Your spaceship suddenly appeared in our orbit. This collision was not intentional. Queen Filia choked up again when she recalled the sadness. Although I don't know why there are human races in the universe that have the same appearance, genes and even language as us sick people, and this collision was an accident, I think you should need a new home, of course, under the rule of our empire. Are you willing? Mingze said in a deep voice. We are willing. On behalf of all the people of the Principality of Xi'an, I express our willingness to submit to the rule of the empire. Philia took off the crown on her head and threw it to the edge of the port platform beside her. The crown rolled down the port platform. She knew that if she wanted to survive from today, she would no longer be the original queen of the principality. She was just an ordinary person who wanted to integrate into this new home. Seeing that the queen of their principality had surrendered to the empire, the many guards behind Philia also cooperated by tearing off the royal emblem on their chests and throwing it aside. After seeing the sincere actions of Philia and others, Mingze also took off his black helmet and held it in his arms, and stretched out his hand to Philia. Welcome home, thank you. Although Philia was shocked that the race of this civilization was exactly the same as the race of their principality, gratitude had occupied her mind, but she already vaguely knew why this civilization was willing to accept them. We will first place all of you on Earth to study the customs of the Empire, brainwashing, and when they complete their studies, they will be dispersed to Earth and the new home planet. Mingze stretched out his hand and pulled up Philia, who was kneeling on the ground. Your Majesty, we have detected a violent hyperspace signal outside the star system we are currently in. Tianyi suddenly appeared beside Mingze. Yes, they are coming. They are finally catching up. Philia's body trembled a little. All defense modules in the orbits of all planets are turned on and moved to the direction where the hyperspace fluctuations occur. All warships and fighters are launched and ready to fight, Mingze ordered Tianyi. After receiving the order, the orbital defense modules of each planet began to slowly move along the magnetic energy track to the side facing away from the star. Residents in the cities on the ground were also urgently evacuated to the shelters deep underground, while slaves and auxiliary soldiers took up weapons and entered various fortresses on the ground. A few minutes later, a large fleet of irregularly shaped spaceships appeared in the starry sky at the edge of the star system, where the Imperial fleet was located. The irregularly shaped spaceships were like rags pieced together by various parts. Although messy, they were full of a kind of apocalyptic beauty. The joints of these parts were some dark red flesh tissues. There were huge tentacles outside the spacecraft that kept expanding and contracting. From time to time, a huge sphere would bulge out from the tentacles. In the huge sphere were glinting eyes, but then the eyes moved to other places. Isn't it disgusting that these people have transformed themselves into this? Mingze frowned as he looked at the scene in the holographic projection in front of him. Their minds have been corrupted, and their aesthetics should have been corrupted together, so we call them corruptors. These warships seem to be just their extensions. Sophia shook her head. After scanning for a while, the eyes on the tentacles of this strange fleet looked in the direction of the Imperial fleet and fixed their eyes. As if they had noticed something, the corruptor fleet did not move towards the Imperial fleet, but stayed where it was, doing nothing and just quietly looking at the 4 planets in the Imperial fleet. What are they doing? Mingze asked in confusion. They may have noticed the powerful military force of the Empire and dared not move forward easily. They are waiting for reinforcements. Sophia shook her head. Your Majesty, should we continue to move towards the designated star field? Tianyi said cautiously. No hurry, let's see the strength of the corruptor civilization fleet before making a decision. If their strength is very weak, then we will attack and occupy their star field for ourselves. Mingze touched his chin and thought. Do you know the specific strength of these corruptor civilization fleets? Mingze thought of something and turned back to look at Philia and asked. I don't know. Although their fleets are ugly, their combat effectiveness is far greater than ours. Our combat fleet was captured in just 1 round. Philia shook his head. Then should we order the fleet to take the initiative to attack? Tianyi asked. No, their purpose is to lead our warships out of the planet's orbit. Once we lose the assistance of the orbital defense module on the planet, the loss rate of our fleet will increase greatly. I will not do such an unprofitable thing. Let's wait quietly and see when they can't hold back and order the engineering department to speed up repairs and the construction of new modules. Mingze sneered and turned away. Chapter 236, Fighting the Corruptors, added the 3rd update for Wuming. 15 days later, the 4 Imperial planets that had been fully charged jumped into hyperspace again. During these 15 days, the fleet of the corruptor civilization just quietly watched the fleet of the Empire from a distance, without moving a bit. During the 15 days in hyperspace, the citizens of the Principality of Xi'an that had been annexed into the Sith Empire began a year-long in-depth brainwashing. Their spacecraft were also dismantled and refined, becoming the raw materials for the Empire's orbital defense modules. Taking advantage of these 15 days of safety, The Empire accelerated the construction of orbital defense modules for each planet. At the same time, cruisers with shorter construction time were also put back on the construction schedule because the Empire urgently needed troops. During the 15 days, Mingze hosted a banquet for the former queen of the Principality of Xi'an, Philia, and got a lot of important information. For example, after the Principality of Xi'an encountered the harvest of the corruptor for the first time, they had secretly contacted hundreds of human civilizations in the same star field. These human civilizations were blocked on the planet by the fleet of the corruptors after they established a fifth colony. Countless corruptors killed all the scientists of these civilizations, leaving these civilizations in a situation where their technology was locked and they could only have children to increase their food. In order to escape the clutches of these corruptors, these human civilizations secretly established an underground organization to communicate with each other. This organization would take out the brains of all people who might become scientists and put them into machines, allowing these scientists to grow through virtual networks. This would prevent the corruptors from discovering these talented scientists to the greatest extent possible. The Principality of Xi'an secretly obtained communications with these civilizations and learned about the powerful strength of these corruptors, so it gave up the idea of fighting the corruptors to the death, and instead desperately built spaceships to try to take all the people away. Of course, these civilizations were actually to allow the Principality of Xi'an to escape the sphere of influence of the corruptor civilization and contact more powerful civilizations, thereby saving them from the water and fire. Because this corruptor civilization blocked the external signals of the entire star field, preventing other civilizations from obtaining information within the star field, they could only obtain strong foreign aid in this way. In addition to this information, Mingze also got a rumor about the ruins of an ancient civilization in the star field. It is said that there is a mysterious relic hidden in the star field that only humans can enter, and the corruptors who have modified their own genes have lost a qualification to enter the relic. If they put slaves in, they would be worried that these slaves would get some advanced technology, so the corruptor civilization left this relic idle. After knowing this possible rumor of the relic, Mingze decided to take a risk and continue to move forward into the star field of the corruptor civilization. If he really can't beat it, can he run away? 15 days later, the 4 huge planets jumped out of hyperspace again and came to a new galaxy. This galaxy is still deserted and there is no sign of civilization. A few hours later, the corruptor fleet also appeared in this galaxy, still watching from afar that the Imperial fleet did not move forward, but the number of the corruptor fleet has doubled. Your Majesty, it seems that the corruptors have called for reinforcements, but why don't they launch an attack? Qiyu, who has returned to Mingze, asked curiously. They must think that their fleet is not strong enough to bite off our hedgehog, and they are still waiting for reinforcements. When they think they are strong enough, they will attack us. Mingze sat at his desk with his legs crossed. Sure enough, another 15 days passed, and the corruptor fleet still did not make any movement. It just quietly floated in the starry sky and watched the mining ships and transport ships of the Imperial fleet coming and going in the galaxy. As the 4 planets of the Empire completed the recharge again, the Imperial fleet jumped into hyperspace again. After 15 days of flight time, the Imperial fleet jumped out of hyperspace again. The corruptor fleet following in the distance still did not make any movement, but their fleet size increased by another fleet, reaching 1.5 times the original number of warships. It was still a peaceful 15 days. After several rounds of this, the Imperial fleet jumped out of hyperspace again. I thought the corruptor fleet would still remain idle, but I didn't expect that after leaving the hyperspace, the Imperial fleet found that the corruptor fleet had increased to 10 times the original number, and they were black and aggressive and drove towards the Imperial fleet. All departments, prepare for battle. Warships, leave. Mingze connected to the control center after seeing the corruptor fleet start to attack on the holographic screen in his office. The Imperial battleship and cruiser formations, which had been on standby for a long time, immediately ignited their thrusters and rushed out of the port of New Star. The orbital defense modules on the surface of the 4 planets also began to gather rapidly in the direction of the enemy's attack. People on the surface of Earth and New Homestar could clearly see countless black objects passing through the sky above their heads. The original daytime instantly turned into night. After these black objects passed, the sky became bright again. But people on the night hemisphere felt that the starry sky above their heads was covered by black hexagonal modules. However, The piercing air defense alarm that followed made people no longer in the mood to care about the starry sky, and they followed the instructions and hid in the underground shelters. The orbital defense modules on the 3 planets of Earth, New Home Star, and New Star formed a triangular formation, and in the middle of the formation were the Empire's battleship and cruiser formations. Wait until they are within range and then attack with all your strength. These corruptor warships are using close combat weapons. Destroy them before they get close. As the corruptor fleet approached rapidly, the orbital turrets on the 3 planets began to store energy, and solid shells were loaded into the barrels one by one. These weapons were mass accelerators that were improved on the basis of the original orbital beam cannons. These accelerators then covered the solid shells in the barrels with a lasting gravity field to make the weight of the shells extremely light, and then accelerated them to a speed close to the speed of light, giving them extremely terrifying potential energy. After the shells hit the target, the gravity field on the surface will disappear, and the energy inside the shells will tear the shells apart and explode. The exploding shells will scatter inside the warships, destroying the enemy ships from the inside. Fire. With Mingze's order, countless shells were fired from the orbital turrets towards the corruptor fleet. The corruptor fleet, which was not familiar with the new weapons equipped by the Empire, madly rushed towards the rain of bullets fired by the Empire, trying to rely on the powerful shields of the warships to resist. One after another, the mass acceleration bombs hit the shield of the corruptor fleet. The seemingly solid shield was instantly shattered into a sky full of light spots that dissipated in the air. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237: The Corruptor's True Form. The corruptor fleet never expected that the Empire's weapons would be so powerful, and it was too late to escape. Because there were too many Imperial orbital artillery batteries, the rain of bullets formed blocked the corruptor civilization fleet in all 4 directions, leaving the corruptor fleet with nowhere to hide. After countless shells penetrated the shield and hit the corruptor warships, the terrifying kinetic energy was instantly released on the outer armor of the corruptor fleet. The powerful kinetic energy generated by the huge shells, which was comparable to the speed of light, instantly tore the entire armor apart, and the internal hull tissue of the corruptor warship was instantly twisted into a ball. If it weren't for the corruptor's life tissue connecting the various modules of the warship to absorb and buffer, the entire warship would have disintegrated long ago. But the corruptor's flesh that absorbed the powerful kinetic energy began to emit a bright red light. Your Majesty, the corruptor's hull is heating up rapidly, as if the corruptor has converted the kinetic energy it absorbs into light and heat and released it. This life form has a very strong adaptability. An officer couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the screen in front of him. Use beam cannons to see how they react. Mingze touched his chin. After receiving the order, many beam cannons of the Empire aimed at the severely damaged corruptor warships. Countless red beams gushed out, and in the blink of an eye, they had already attacked the corruptor fleet warships. After the corruptor warships were attacked by beam cannons, their powerful and strange life tissues began to emit red light again. Your Majesty, the temperature of the corruptor warship's life tissues has risen again. They have suffered very limited damage. These biological warships seem to be able to absorb most of the pure energy attacks. The officer's face was a little frightened. Huh? Mingze sighed. Fortunately, he had exchanged information about a kinetic main weapon with the Void Merchant before setting off. If the Empire still used beam energy weapons and nuclear bombs, the consequences would be a miserable ending that he definitely didn't want to see. The corruptors who can absorb and release energy are simply the nemesis of energy weapons. All secondary weapons and beam cannons fire at the same time. Kill them all. Can't you absorb energy? I'll let you suck as hard as you can until you die. Following Mingze's order, the beam cannons and the secondary guns that had entered the range opened fire one after another. The corruptor fleet, which had been prepared this time, began to dodge flexibly, and the huge ships moved flexibly in the universe. However, the number of the Empire's shells was too large, and the continuous beam cannons made the corruptor's life tissues reach the upper limit of energy absorption in a short period of time. At this time, the temperature in their bodies had reached an extremely high temperature, and some tissues had even begun to melt by themselves. The corruptor warships that had lost their kinetic energy absorption ability were quickly torn into pieces by the shells all over the sky. Retreat, As the order to retreat came from the flagship in the middle of the corruptor fleet, many of the remaining corruptor warships fled into the hyperspace in the dazzling light. It seems that this civilization is not very terrifying. Each gunboat goes to clean up the battlefield and see if you can find any useful clues. Li Ming sneered and turned off the holographic screen, but unexpectedly saw Philia with a serious face on the side. As the former queen of the Principality of Xi'an, who had fought against a corruptor civilization, Li Ming's naturally invited her to watch the live battle so that she could get some advice in time. Your Majesty, hey, Philia's face looked a little bad, and she was hesitant to speak. Go ahead, Li Ming's frowned. Your Majesty, these warships are just a few of their squadrons, and there is only one corruptor pilot in each of their warships, and the corruptor civilization dispatched 30 million ships when it attacked our colony that time. This time, only less than 10,000 ships were dispatched. This is probably just a tentative attack. Philia's face turned pale. You mean they have 30 million warships? Li Ming's was a little surprised. There are 30 million warships just to attack one of our colonies. Philia nodded affirmatively. Tianyi, come out, let's change direction. Li Ming's rubbed his swollen temples. Why is this universe so dangerous, and there are crises everywhere? It's just right, Your Majesty, I have good news to tell you. Tianyi's figure appeared in front of Li Ming's desk. What good news? Li Ming's asked curiously. Our deep space exploration ship found something interesting in this galaxy. This may become our new home. Tianyi smiled mysteriously. Oh, recalibrate the jump point. Let's go to the star system you mentioned. The gloom in Li Ming's heart was instantly diluted. At this time, the gunboat responsible for cleaning the battlefield found life reactions in a piece of the hull that was blown away. Report to the commander. This is Sweeper 003. I scanned suspicious life reactions in the wreckage of the corruptor warship. Soon the command center received a communication from the gunboat. Drag the wreckage to the number 13 biochemical isolation port. The gunboat that received the order shot a magnetic traction rope at the huge wreckage, started the thruster and dragged the wreckage to the orbital space station of New Star. Tens of minutes later, the heavy wreckage was placed on the ground in the isolation port of the orbital space station of New Star. Countless combat robots and special warfare mechas surrounded it, and the orbital acceleration rifles of the special warfare mechas were also aimed at the wreckage. Then, two special warfare mechas holding cutters walked towards the wreckage. Suddenly, the wreckage made a metallic twisting sound, and countless black liquids with a foul smell sprayed out from the wreckage, and then there was no movement. Just when everyone was relieved, a black shadow suddenly jumped out of the rotten tissue among the wreckage and quickly climbed to the ceiling. The robots and special warfare mechas that reacted frantically pulled the trigger at the black shadow. Unexpectedly, the black shadow evaded, and countless bullets hit the wall, and the broken building fragments flew everywhere. The black shadow took advantage of the time when everyone was distracted by stray bullets and rushed towards a special warfare mecha, piercing the abdomen of the special warfare mecha with one claw. However, to its surprise, the mecha did not lose its ability to move or die, but pressed it to the ground with its back hand. The huge and heavy body of the mecha pinned the shadow to the ground and made it unable to move. Only then did everyone see the true face of the shadow. The shadow's face was covered by a layer of black biological shell, and his whole body was wrapped in black leather clothes. Chapter 238 Interrogation. This layer of leather armor should be their spacesuit. Tear off their spacesuit. Li Ming's, who had already replaced his body, came to the quarantine port. Two Marines who received the order stepped forward, stretched out their hands to grab the edge of the leather armor, and pulled it out hard. Waves of screams came from under the helmet of the corruptor, and countless flesh and blood rolled out from under the leather coat torn open by the Marines. It turns out that this is their epidermis. Li Ming's touched his nose awkwardly. It's already been torn. Why are you still standing there? Tear it off. Li Ming's frowned and said, not intending to let the corruptor go anyway. The Marine who had stopped continued to exert force until the entire leather surface was completely separated from the corruptor. I will kill you. The corruptor whose epidermis was torn off was so painful that his voice was a little weak, and the exposed flesh without epidermis protection was even more painful because of the friction with the ground, making him scream. You're still talking tough. Take off your helmet too. Li Ming's touched his nose and said indifferently. The corruptor trembled when he heard this. The two Marines didn't hesitate and inserted their hands into the gap in the corruptor's skin. Let me go, the corruptor begged. The humans you used as food also begged like this before. Continue. Li Mingze squatted in front of the corruptor and stretched out his hand to grab the corruptor's helmet and forced him to raise his head. The two Marines exerted force, and the corruptor's black helmet was directly torn in half. Let me die. Let me die. The corruptor wailed wildly in pain. Li Mingze took a closer look and saw that the face under the corruptor's helmet was no different from that of a human, except that the hundreds of tentacles on the top of his head, without a single hair, were torn off. You devoured and created this ugly skin. Li Mingze reached out and grabbed the surface of the leather thrown on the ground and placed it in front of the corruptor with disdain. Suddenly, the corruptor's face opened several small openings, and a big mouth full of sharp teeth stretched out from it and bit towards Li Mingze. However, he obviously didn't know that Li Mingze's current stand not only had optimized genes, but also replaced all bones with alloyed bones, and nanorobots were injected into the muscles. Now his strength and reaction ability cannot be measured by ordinary humans. Li Mingze was quick-eyed and quick-handed, and stretched out his hand to pinch the corruptor's big mouth. With both hands, he squeezed hard, and a sound of bones breaking came from the corruptor's mouth. The corruptor's eyes widened instantly, and he wanted to shout but couldn't open his mouth. Don't want a mouth anymore? I'll satisfy you. As he said that, Li Mingze pinched the corruptor's mouth with one hand and pulled out a beam energy blade from his waist with the other hand. As the sound of objects being cut came, Li Mingze cut off the mouth of the corruptor as a whole. The corruptor's eyes squinted and he passed out. Li Mingze let go of his hand, stood up and circled around the corruptor. Why does this tail look so familiar, alien? That's right. It's the tail of the alien. No wonder the mouth looks so familiar too. It turns out that the so-called devouring gene of this civilization was extracted from the alien. Li Mingze touched his chin. Oh my god, fortunately I ordered them to erase the rapid growth gene before all the new humans leave the cabin. Fortunately, otherwise these 30 billion new humans would inevitably become new corruptors, Li Mingze muttered to himself. Send it to the laboratory, I want to know the detailed data of his body. Also, don't forget to get me some information about the corruptor, Li Mingze instructed the two Marines. Yes, sir. With the help of the special combat mecha, the two Marines put the corruptor into the isolation box that had been prepared for a long time and sent it to the laboratory. A few hours later, in the orbital biochemical laboratory of the Empire Nuwa Star, the corruptor was placed on the operating table. The degree of similarity between his genes and humans has been reduced to less than 20%. His lifespan has reached an astonishing 1,000 years. The tentacles on his head seem to be nerve transmission terminals evolved to control the warship. Maybe this is why he screams so miserably. Well, his body has also evolved to be very suitable for the zero-gravity environment of the universe. The spacesuit on his body is also an organ he grew himself, which has the function of isolating radiation and keeping warm. Several scientists held tablets and surrounded the corruptor. His body is healing itself, and the healing speed is very fast. Soon a new spacesuit will be able to grow out. A scientist touched the dancing small flesh buds on the corruptor's body with tweezers. But the biological tissues on his spaceship have all been destroyed. We can't know whether the relationship between this spaceship and this corruptor is symbiotic or integrated. Another scientist shook his head. A few hours later, where am I? The corruptor opened his eyes hazily, but was soon awakened by the pain coming from his body. Let me go. Our army of corruptors will crush you. We will devour you, the corruptor roared with his mouth that had just recovered. Li Mingze, who had been in the observation room for a long time, opened the door of the laboratory and walked in. Before that, why don't we pay attention to your physical and mental health? Li Mingze walked to the corruptor, tore off a piece of the corruptor's growing epidermis and threw it aside. The corruptor was in so much pain that he struggled frantically on the operating table, but several alloy buckles locked him firmly on the operating table and he could not move. Come and talk to me about your race? Li Mingze pulled a chair and sat next to the operating table. Don't even think about it, the corruptor roared loudly, and his saliva splashed on Li Mingze's clothes. Oh? Don't even think about it? Li Mingze exerted force with his legs, and the chair slid to the top of the corruptor's head. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it, Li Mingze sneered as he pulled up the nerve tentacle on the top of the corruptor's head and broke it in half. The corruptor wailed again. Do you still want it? Li Mingze grabbed the corruptor's head and asked viciously. Don't try to get anything out of me, the corruptor continued to be stubborn. Then I can only give you a big healthcare. Look, this is the nerve reaction amplification solution. Li Mingze poured the solution in his hand onto the top of the corruptor's head. No, no. As the solution was poured into the top of the corruptor's head, Li Mingze pulled up a nerve tentacle again, and the severe pain instantly spread to the corruptor's whole body. Chapter 239 Devouring the Corruptor. I'm willing to cooperate. I'm willing to cooperate. Give me a quick death, begged the corruptor. Tell me about this biological spacesuit you're wearing outside, and your warship. Li Mingze released the neural tentacles in his hand. After our tribe gained the ability to evolve, we initially evolved in all aspects. We frantically strengthened our strength, speed, and intelligence. But soon we found that such a comprehensive evolution did not achieve our expected goals, so we changed our strategy. We began to carry out special strengthening in certain aspects according to the different divisions of labor. The tribesmen responsible for ground combat evolved in strength, speed, and melee ability. After evolution, they became huge, strong but flexible. Those in charge of scientific and technological research and development or command chose to strengthen the brain. Their brains became more developed, but the side effect was slow movement and weak body, and I belong to the evolutionary direction responsible for space warfare and colonial warship driving. The surface cortex of my evolved body is a biological spacesuit that can adapt to the harsh environment of the universe. In order to be able to control the warship, my whole body is covered with nerve transmission organs so that I can integrate with the warship more perfectly. As for my warship, it is a part of my body that extends out. It is a special product born after we devoured a star beast. Although I was originally one with it, I can also separate from it. Once the battleship is destroyed, I can grow a new battleship if there are enough nutrients, but the new battleship will not have hyperspace engines, weapons, or shields. These equipment were installed later. The corruptor told all he knew. Where did you get your ability to absorb energy? Li Mingze asked the party was most curious about. That's a special creature we found on a planet full of dozens of levels of hurricanes and unknown energy clouds. In order to survive the invasion of hurricanes and energy clouds, these creatures have evolved this special ability over hundreds of millions of years. This ability allows them to convert part of the kinetic energy and most of the energy into heat and light and release them to achieve the purpose of protecting themselves. All of our combat type and battleship type evolvers have swallowed this gene. This gene has made us invincible in thousands of years of battles. The corruptor clenched his fist, and his fist began to emit a faint red light. Interesting. This is a gene that can be used for excellent biological armor. Okay, I'll give you a quick death. Li Mingze clapped his hands, stood up, and walked out of the laboratory. Come here, send Red Dot over, Li Mingze ordered the soldier who was guarding on the side. A few hours later, Red Dot slowly followed the soldier to the laboratory. Red Dot, come here, Li Mingze waved at Red Dot. Red Dot, who had originally looked like a boss, immediately ran to Li Mingze with his tongue out. This look was learned from his former pet Osha, and the effect was very good. Do you see the ugly man inside? Devour him and get a gene that can convert kinetic energy and energy into heat and light. This gene is very useful to me. Li Mingze pointed to the corruptor who was waiting anxiously in the observation room. Red Dot, whose IQ has reached that of an 18-year-old youth, nodded, indicating that he had understood what Li Mingze meant, but he did not move. Instead, he looked at Li Mingze eagerly, revealing an expression that said, "What good is there for me? It's done. There will be no limit on snacks for the next year." In order to control Red Dot's increasingly fat body, Li Mingze limited Red Dot's daily snack supply, making Red Dot look unsatisfied every day. Hearing that there was no limit on snacks, Red Dot, who had been corrupted by various snacks, nodded excitedly and turned to walk towards the laboratory door. It put its claws on the hydraulic handle of the laboratory door, turned it gently, and the isolation door was easily opened by it. Then a ferocious expression appeared on its face, and it walked into the laboratory with its legs upright and aggressive. Who are you? Don't come over. The corruptor looked at the alien Mother Red Dot who walked into the laboratory in horror, because genetic modification was a thing of more than 3,000 years ago, and now they have no idea about the source of the genes in their bodies. He didn't know that the one standing in front of him was the source of the devouring genes in his body, the alien. Release the restraint device. Li Mingze stood outside the laboratory window with his hands behind his back and said in a deep voice to the researcher beside him. The researcher obeyed the order and pulled the switch of the metal buckle that restrained the corruptor. The metal buckles that bound the corruptor's limbs and neck instantly retracted into the test bench. After the corruptor felt that it was no longer restrained, it immediately stood up and jumped to the side. However, even if he left the console, he had nowhere to hide. The laboratory was so small and the isolation door was still tightly locked. After discovering that the prey could move, Red Dot's eyes showed a glimmer of excitement. It felt a little itchy all over its body after not exercising for a long time. With a fierce kick of its hind legs on the ground, Red Dot pounced towards the corruptor, and the sharp blades on its claws flashed a faint cold light. The corruptor, whose body had been strengthened, was not to be outdone and quickly dodged to the side. Red Dot, whose attack failed, clawed into the hard alloy wall of the laboratory with one claw and scratched a big hole. Mingze, who was standing in front of the window, took a breath of cold air. You know, this is a special isolation laboratory. The inner walls of the laboratory are made of the alloy that wraps the bridge of a battleship. I didn't expect that the usually stupid Red Dot could actually penetrate it with one claw. The corruptor who dodged the attack suddenly jumped onto the back of Red Dot, trying to get rid of this terrifying monster from behind. Red Dot, who had already noticed it, whipped his tail hard, and whipped the corruptor who jumped into the air directly, and hit it hard against the wall. The bone blade on the tail cut a huge wound on the corruptor's chest, and the scarlet granulation in the wound turned outward. The granulation that was trying to repair the wound was still gently wriggling in the air. The corruptor, who was hit hard by the blow, lay on the ground powerlessly, and blood kept pouring out of his mouth. Ahem, you promised to give me a quick death. The corruptor covered the wound on his chest powerlessly. Mingze pulled the microphone from the side. You just lie there obediently. And being eaten is just a matter of a blink of an eye. Why do you have to hide? The corruptor was so angry at Mingze's shamelessness that he rolled his eyes and fainted. Red Dot walked up to the side, opened its bloody mouth, and swallowed the corruptor whole. As the alien's devouring genes in the Red Dot's body began to work, the corruptor's body quickly turned into a pool of liquid and was absorbed by the Red Dot. Chapter 240 The Empire's New Home. As if he had eaten something disgusting, Red Dot retched twice in disgust, but the corruptor had been absorbed and nothing came out. Red Dot, whose heart had already collapsed, decided to give him another year of snacks before he would consider swallowing another piece of raw meat. Compared with snacks, it was just a pile of pig food that was hard to swallow. However, Red Dot soon felt that the new gene was slowly integrating into his body, and he closed his eyes comfortably, so he agreed to continue with snacks for a year. It seemed that something was crawling under Red Dot's black and red shell, and his whole body was slightly squirming. After a while, accompanied by the sound of shattering, Red Dot's shell quickly broke apart and fell on the floor of the laboratory, and a brand new bright red shell appeared on Red Dot's body. This new shell has a more streamlined shape, without the hideous feeling of the past, but with a bit more streamlined beauty. Shaking his body comfortably, Red Dot walked towards the door of the laboratory, and Mingze opened the isolation door in the observation room. Red Dot, who came out of the laboratory, suddenly rushed in front of Mingze and stretched out his claws towards Mingze. When the claw was half a meter away from Mingze, it stopped in the air. Red Dot looked at Mingze with eager eyes. Mingze helplessly held his forehead and ordered someone to bring a cart of snacks to Red Dot. Red Dot then laid down in the snack cart with satisfaction and was pushed out of the laboratory by the soldiers. Arrange the biological weapons research department to gather all the alien troops and prepare for the upgrade. All the embryos and cloned eggs that have not yet hatched will be destroyed on the spot. These backward larvae will not be needed. Mingze turned his head and said to the scientist beside him. Also, I will let Red Dot cooperate with you later. You should combine this gene that can absorb energy into the biological armor as soon as possible. I hope that the shields of the Earth and the new home planet and various types of warships can use the upgraded biological armor as soon as possible. Mingze remembered something and instructed again, and then turned and left the orbital laboratory. The Imperial Planet Fleet, which had decided to turn around and no longer advance towards the Corruptor Star region, started the hyperspace engine and jumped into hyperspace after replenishing energy and minerals again. If you open the star map at this time, you will find that the Empire's route was close to a straight line before, but now it suddenly made a 90-degree turn in a certain star system, passing by the star field outside the Corruptor galaxy and heading in another direction. In the Empire's new destination, the new starting point star system, several deep space exploration ships coming from other directions are conducting a detailed scan of the star system where the mysterious facility was discovered. As the Empire's new route, they must ensure the absolute safety of this star system, Not to mention that such an amazing facility was discovered in this star system. Countless drones were released from the deep space exploration ship and flew towards the mysterious facility in this star system. A few months later, the Empire's planetary fleet finally arrived at the Proxima star system next to the new starting point star system that Tianyi mentioned as having a surprise. The Empire's planetary fleet, which jumped out of hyperspace, aimed the completed solar array at the huge star in the star system. Battleships and cruisers sailed out of the port of Nuwa Star, and gathered in the orbit of Nuwa Star to form a huge fleet consisting of 3 drone motherships, 20 battleships and 30 cruisers. In order to build battleships, defense modules in orbit and solar arrays, the Empire has used up all the minerals it has taken away, leaving only a small amount of spare materials for maintaining the fleet's facilities and repairing damaged battleships. This time, 1/3 of the Empire's battleships were dispatched. This fleet, which consumed countless resources of the Empire, gathered together and flew to the edge of the star system. Tianyi, what are you ordering this fleet to do? Mingze stood in the orbital space station of Nuwa Star with his hands behind his back, looking at the huge fleet that was gathering. Although Mingze agreed to Tianyi's request to mobilize the fleet based on his trust in Tianyi, he still couldn't help asking out of curiosity. Your Majesty, although our deep space exploration ships have conducted detailed explorations in the target star system, the number of drones they carry is too small. For the entire star system, it is simply looking for a needle in a haystack. The high-power scanners, drones, and fighters carried by our fleet can obtain more detailed information in this star system, Tianyi explained behind Mingze. Well, how long will it take for us to move into the new star system? Mingze rubbed his brows. He was a little worried that the fleet of the corruptor might catch up. It won't take too long, Your Majesty. After this recharge is completed, we can enter our new home in 10 days, the new starting point star system. Tianyi smiled. She felt a little uneasy in her heart after wandering in the galaxy for so long. This time she was finally able to move into her new home. 25 days after the Empire's fleet set out, Tianyi received exploration information from the fleet. Your Majesty, we can set off. Tianyi appeared in front of Mingze, who was browsing documents in the office. Oh? Let's go. Mingze put down the documents in his hand and lay back in the hibernation chamber. A brand new clone in the Nuwa Star orbital space station woke up. The 4 planets of the Empire jumped into the hyperspace in a burst of light and flew towards their new home. 5 days later, Mingze was called by Tianyi to the observation platform of the space station. Your Majesty, we still have 1 minute to jump out of the hyperspace. Close your eyes and you will see the surprise I mentioned in a while. Tianyi stuck out his tongue. Yes, Mingze stood in front of the window, closed his eyes, and grabbed the guardrail of the observation platform with both hands. Countdown to jump out of hyperspace. 3, 2, 1. With a slight vibration, the 4 planets appeared in the orbit of the new starting point star. The gravity of the star captured the 4 planets, causing the 4 planets to begin to revolve around the star according to different orbits. Your Majesty, you can open your eyes. Tianyi's voice came to Mingze's ears. Mingze slowly opened his eyes upon hearing this, and what he saw was a huge circular building that stretched from one side of the viewing platform to the other like a galaxy. The inner surface of the circular building was covered with the green mountains and blue sea, and the sea surface reflected charming light under the shining of the stars. As Mingze turned the viewing platform, the part of the entire circular building on the side of the star came into his sight. This is a huge circular building surrounding the central star. The width of the entire building is as wide as the diameter of the Earth. The huge surface is covered with various ecological environments, including plains, hills, deserts and oceans. The only flaw is that this huge circular building is broken in half for some reason. The broken half has turned black as if it had been roasted by flames, and countless skeletons and construction modules are exposed in the starry sky. Chapter 241 Colonizing the Ring World. This is so spectacular. Mingze opened his mouth in shock. What kind of civilization could build such a super building? Your Majesty, I call it a ring world. It is 314 million kilometers long and 10,000 kilometers wide. The entire ring world is artificially divided into 9 pieces, and the 5 pieces that were destroyed are the ones on the other side of the star. Its inner surface is covered with an energy membrane that can absorb the light of the star. This energy membrane can keep the entire surface of the ring world within a suitable light intensity range. At the same time, It provides energy for the entire building. This super building has been running in the orbit of this star for 2 million years. I don't know what magical power has kept it in such a stable operating state and has not collided with the star. The above is the basic information we have learned about it. Now we can use the 4 major areas outside our planet. After saying that, Tianyi pointed to the huge continental plates that Mingze had just seen outside the window. Are there any living things on this ring world? For example, the remnants of this civilization? Mingze asked curiously. He didn't understand why this ring world was abandoned here. For some reason, there are only various plants on this ring world, and we haven't seen any trace of any living creatures. Tianyi shook his head regretfully. However, it seems that there is only this ring world in this galaxy. Are there any mineral resources that we can develop? Mingze suddenly thought of a crucial question. If this galaxy has no resources, and all mining stations are built outside, it will definitely be detrimental to the development of the Empire. Your Majesty, according to our detection, there are a lot of minerals buried under the continent of this ring world, and they are all high-density rich mines. Not only that, have you forgotten the Sith seeds we sowed? Tianyi reminded. That's right, notify all departments to prepare to start colonization activities. We want to develop and utilize this huge ring world, Mingze said as he looked at the huge ring world that was extremely spectacular under the sunlight. Yes, sir. Tianyi's figure disappeared in the landscape room. Tens of thousands of transport ships took off from the 4 planets of the Empire and flew towards the ring world outside the orbits of several planets. Wang Rongtao sat excitedly by the window of a passenger spaceship. Originally an Earthling, he obtained the status of a first-class citizen after assessment and study, and was also qualified to be the first batch to colonize the ring world. He couldn't help but smack his lips as he looked at the huge circular building with no end inside in the starry sky. If the Empire had not come to Earth, he might never have been able to enter space in his lifetime, let alone witness such a spectacular miracle with his own eyes. It was the arrival of the Empire that gave him such an opportunity. You know, for science fiction fans like them, it is worth dying to be able to ride a spaceship in the galaxy. The spaceship is about to arrive at our new home, the starting point of the ring world. All personnel please fasten your seat belts. As the broadcast sounded, the posture of the spaceship began to change slowly. Wang Rongtao hurriedly fastened his seat belt and pressed his face against the glass in anticipation. As the attitude of the spaceship was adjusted to be parallel to the ground of the ring world, fire began to flicker outside the window of the spaceship. It was obvious that the energy membrane wrapped on the inner ring of the ring world also played some role as an atmosphere. After a few seconds, the red light outside the window disappeared, and the passenger ship emerged from the heavy clouds covering the sky and flew to the ground in the distance. Through the window, Wang Rongtao saw the mountains and endless grasslands in the distance. There were dense forests at the border of the grassland, and a huge lake at the foot of the mountains. At this time, 3 large transport ships were docked next to the lake, and countless supplies and temporary buildings were being unloaded from the transport ships to the flat ground. Densely packed construction robots have cleared a piece of construction land not far away, and the Empire's colonization of the starting ring world will start from this open space. With a burst of exhaust sound, the passenger ship where Wang Rongtao was located stopped steadily on the open space next to the transport ship. The hatch of the passenger ship opened upwards, and an escalator extended from the hatch to the ground. Wang Rongtao walked down the escalator carrying his backpack. Wang Rongtao, who was dazzled by the dazzling sunlight, couldn't help but cover his eyes with his hand. Hurry up, buddy in front. At the urging of the people behind him, Wang Rongtao hurried down the escalator. At this time, a strange-shaped spaceship flew towards the forest in the distant sky. This spaceship had no armor, and there were tens of thousands of huge glass jars on the spaceship, and thousands of small elevators on the bottom of the ship. Wang Rongtao knew that it was a seeding spaceship specially prepared by the Empire. The seeds were not seeds, but various animals produced on Earth, Sith Star, and New Home Star. Because there were only rich vegetation on the starting ring world, but no animals, in order to improve the entire ecological chain, the Empire would copy the entire food chain from whales to ants to the ring world. The huge glass jars on the spaceship were storing various developing organisms. These organisms implanted with the alien growth acceleration gene will grow up and take shape in just a few days and be released into nature. In order to prevent the situation of the corruptor, all the alien growth genes in the organisms will be removed when leaving the warehouse. Although the cost is very high, In order to improve the entire food chain of the ring world as soon as possible, this is the only way. Wang Rongtao walked down from the passenger ship and came to the temporary settlement that had been built next to the construction site. Glass houses like containers were connected together to form a set of two-story transparent villas. Each villa can accommodate 2 colonists, usually 2 men, but if you want to meet someone by chance, you can randomly choose the opposite sex. There are more than 1,000 small villas like this in each colony, and there are more than 10,000 colonies in the entire starting ring world, and these colonies are far apart. When these colonies develop, a steady stream of immigrants will be transferred from the already congested Sith Star, Earth, and New Home Star to the ring world. At that time, the Empire will seal all the mines on Earth, New Home Star, and Sith Star. And all heavy industries will be transferred to the ring world, and only high-ranking citizens will be able to live on these 3 planets. At the same time, all universities and scientific research facilities will be evenly distributed to the 3 planets and the ring world. New Star will continue to serve as a population factory and military base, and the construction of some small spacecraft will also be transferred from New Star to the ring world. Chapter 242: The Lost Cancer Arc. As the colonization work progressed, countless high-rise buildings rose from the ground on the ring world. After having enough population, transport ships carrying mining modules and power station modules flew to the ring world again. In less than 10 days, countless mines and power plants stood on the continents of the ring world. Relying on the extremely rich mineral resources under the surface of the ring world, the mining field entered full power operation, but there were too many mineral deposits, and the area that the existing mines could mine was just as small as a grain of sand in the desert. The docks and factories used to build small and medium-sized ships and various equipment were also moved to the ring world one after another. The entire ring world was rejuvenated, and busy people could be seen everywhere. With the abundance of mineral resources, all the shipyards and factories of the Empire were turned on, and they started to build various warships with full power. However, an embarrassing situation occurred. Although the minerals under the surface were very rich, the speed of the Empire's mining field could not keep up with the speed of warship construction, which seriously affected the construction progress of the Empire's warships. Just when Mingze was having a headache about this, a silver spaceship much larger than the drone mothership suddenly appeared in the starry sky outside the starting star system. Your Majesty, the first fruit ship of the Sith seeds we spread has arrived. The arrival of this ship will ease the current shortage of minerals. Before Tianyi finished speaking, 2 more silver spaceships jumped out of hyperspace. Now we have enough materials to build warships. These fruit spaceships are all solid and refined materials. We just need to recycle them and use them directly, Tianyi continued excitedly. These 3 Sith seed spaceships came at the right time, greatly alleviating the shortage of minerals used for shipbuilding. The powerful corruptor civilization is like a sword hanging over the head of the Empire at all times. Mingze dare not slack off. The Empire can only have the strength to confront powerful enemies by constantly building ships and expanding its strength. Order the construction ships to continue to build shipyards and mining sites. We must hurry up to make a large number of troops. The enemy we are about to face is too powerful. Mingze clenched his fists and said, "Yes, sir." Tianyi's figure disappeared in the office. From colonization to the ring world, the Empire officially stepped onto the interstellar stage. With unlimited resources and living environment, the Empire's war machine will begin to operate. Under the leadership of Mingze, this Empire will take the ring world as the midpoint and stretch its claws to the surrounding star fields, demarcation line. Tens of thousands of light years away, on the Cancer Arc flying to the target point. Shen Yahu, who was selected to be responsible for maintaining the operation of the Arc, slowly opened his eyes. "Welcome, Mr. Shen Yahu. In the next year, I will be your personal intelligence to help you maintain the Cancer Arc." With a crisp voice, an artificial intelligence in the shape of a female elf floating in the air appeared in front of Shen Yahu. "Who are you? And how long have we been on the road?" Shen Yahu shook his dizzy head. He remembered that he lost consciousness after several years of learning in the virtual space and waited for the system to wake him up. "I am Zaya Akeo, a weak artificial intelligence created by the great imperial intelligence Tianyi. I have no emotions or logical thinking ability, and we have been on the road for more than 500 years." Zaya Akeo, the intelligent assistant, winked playfully. "Wait? More than 500 years? You said we have been away from the Sith Star region for more than 500 years. Don't we only need 338 years to reach our destination? Shen Yahu opened his eyes in disbelief. That's right, now I will help you open the dormant chamber. Someone will tell you the details, Zion Akeo said and disappeared in front of Shen Yahu. With the sound of mechanical operation, Shen Yahu felt that the dormant chamber he was in was picked up by a mechanical arm and placed on a conveyor belt. After a while, the dormant chamber began to move with a conveyor belt. A few minutes later, the dormant chamber made a sound of exhaust, and then the cover of the dormant chamber flipped up, and a faint light shone into the dormant chamber along the open gap. Then 4 pairs of hands wearing white gloves reached into the dormant chamber, lifted Shen Yahu out and placed him on the operating table beside him. Shen Yahu was pressed down by 2 pairs of hands just as he wanted to get up. Don't move. You haven't used your muscles for 500 years. If you move around, you may cause damage to your body, a gentle female voice came to Shen Yahu's ears. Hearing this, Shen Yahu stopped moving around and lay down obediently, letting several medical staff do whatever they wanted. It may be painful next, just bear with it. Your body has been dormant for too long and needs to be reactivated completely. As he spoke, a ring rose under the operating table. Shen Yahu's body slowly floated into the air, and the rising ring was put on his head and went down. Soon his whole body was swept by the ring. A strange feeling came from the top of Shen Yahu's head, and then he felt a dense pain all over his body as if he had been bitten by a small insect. However, the pain soon disappeared, and then he felt that his body was full of strength again. Shen Yahu's body fell onto the operating table again. This time no one stopped him. He sat up quickly and looked around. There were 9 other people lying in the same position as him in the infirmary. Besides, there seemed to be someone staring at him outside the glass of the infirmary. This was what his sixth sense told him. Everyone, please come to the lounge next to you. As a steady male voice came from the infirmary broadcast, several medical staff turned around and left the infirmary. Shen Yahu got up and followed the arrow on the floor with the other 9 people who had just woken up to the lounge next to him. 10 sofas had already been placed in the lounge. The white sofas were arranged in a semicircle. On the small table in front of each sofa, there was a small nameplate with each person's name on it. Shen Yahu and others sat on the sofa with their names on it with curiosity. As everyone sat down, the lights in the room dimmed, and the wall in front of everyone turned into a huge holographic screen. Everyone, you have been awakened because our ark is in a desperate situation. Not long after we set out from the Sith Star field more than 500 years ago, we accidentally crashed into a naturally formed wormhole. Originally, I and several other responsible persons thought it was just a natural wormhole that led to an unknown place. As a result, after waiting for almost a year, the Ark did not leave the wormhole. In line with the idea of continuing to preside over the work until the spacecraft leaves the wormhole, we did not enter the hibernation capsule to hibernate, but continued to work on the Ark with everyone. More than 100 years have passed inadvertently. The Ark still hasn't left the wormhole, and our lifespan is almost at its limit. We will enter the hibernation capsule and wait for the Ark to arrive, and this video was made to make it easier for you to understand our current situation. Don't worry, people who have just awakened, you can choose to work for a year or work until you are old and then wake up a new successor. The old man in the video disappeared. Chapter 243 540 years. Just when Shen Yahu and others thought it was over, 9 old men appeared in the video. Newly awakened gentlemen and ladies, we are the 10 members of the Ark Council. Now the Ark has flown into the wormhole for 540 years. You have also seen the video of the first captain. Our Ark is trapped in the wormhole channel. 543 years have passed since the departure of Sith. Our Ark has begun to age. We have replaced countless parts alone. Although the old parts can be recycled, when the main beams in the spacecraft are also aged and cannot support the weight of the Ark will disintegrate, and we all know that the food on the Ark can only be stored for 800 years. If it exceeds this time, the food stored on the Ark will be damaged, but in order to cope with the increasing maintenance work, now every 10 years or so, we need to wake up 10,000 maintenance personnel. Even if we store all the new food produced in the planting area on the Ark, we only eat the food carried by the Ark. The new food accumulated for more than 200 years is not enough for the increasing number of maintenance personnel for more than 20 years, so the situation is very grim now. We hope that you can take on the important task of resolving the crisis, helping the 20 million humans on this Ark escape the wormhole, and take them to a place where they can bathe in the sun. As soon as the voice fell, the holographic screen was completely extinguished, and the lights in the lounge gradually brightened. Soon the door of the lounge was opened, and 10 old men floated into the lounge on chairs floating in the air, and came to Shen Yahoo and others. Good morning, everyone. We are the third manager of the Ark and the second member of the Ark Council. We have been working for more than 100 years, and our lifespan is not enough to support the Ark to leave the wormhole, so we carefully selected 10 of you from 20 million people. You will be members of the new Ark Council, and your mission is to lead the Ark to escape from hyperspace. Among them, we appoint Shen Yahoo as the president of the Ark Council, hoping to use his natural sixth sense to help the Ark escape. A member of the council pointed at Shen Yahoo and said. Shen Yahoo was surprised. He didn't expect that he would be responsible for the lives of tens of millions of people. When he woke up, I can't do it. Shen Yahoo waved his hands and said, no, you have proved that your sixth sense does exist in the infirmary just now. There is indeed someone behind the observation glass in the infirmary. We are observing you behind this one-way glass, so we hope you can take over the important task of captain and speaker. The leading congressman handed the command sword in his hand to Shen Yahoo. At this point, he was no longer allowed to refuse. Shen Yahoo hurriedly stepped forward and took the command sword with both hands. He bowed solemnly to several congressmen. This is what people often say about accepting orders in times of crisis. Okay, we will hand over some work to you. You will have to meet the maintenance personnel who woke up with you later. With that, the congressman floated out of the lounge on the floating chairs. Will we be like them, living alone on the Ark for the rest of our lives? The only woman among the 10 people said, a little frustrated. Think about it, you can at least spend your whole life on the ship. While those who are in hibernation may not know what happened until the Ark disintegrates in the wormhole, and die in a daze, the person next to the woman patted her shoulder and comforted her. Yes, it's better to live than to die. Let's spend the rest of our lives on the Ark, another person also sighed. Shen Yahoo finally understood why the captains in the video were so old. It turned out that they wanted to spend their lives in peace, because they didn't have much hope that the Ark could leave the wormhole. The so-called leading the Ark out of the wormhole was just an excuse for them to comfort themselves. Thinking of this, Shen Yahoo couldn't help but clench his fists. He was unwilling to accept it. He participated in this voyage plan with the determination to expand the territory for the Empire, and he must not die in the wormhole like this. 10 days later, the top 10 congressmen who had completed the handover of various tasks returned to the hibernation capsule. They wanted to take another chance while they were not dead. If the Ark finally flew out of the wormhole, wouldn't they be able to keep their feet on the ground again? Shen Yahoo and his companions, who had taken over the work of the Ark, came to the bridge at the center of the Ark. The bridge of the Ark was not as crowded as that of an ordinary spaceship. It was as big as a football field. Dozens of seats were suspended in the air, and staff members were sitting on the suspended chairs and shuttling back and forth. The bridge was wrapped with a panoramic holographic screen, which at this time showed the inside of the blue wormhole channel. Shen Yahoo and his companions sat on their own gorgeously shaped suspended chairs, put their hands on the armrests at both ends of the chairs, and as soon as they thought about it, the suspended chairs flew towards the center of the bridge. In the center of the bridge was a huge semicircular conference table suspended in the air, and in the middle of the conference table was a constantly flashing hologram of the Ark. Shen Yahoo came to a seat in front of the conference table and frowned at the hologram of the Ark in front of him. In order to rush the work, the Empire designed the service life of these Arks to be 600 years. Because it was originally expected to arrive in more than 300 years, even if some time was delayed on the road, it could reach the target galaxy within 400 years. It was never expected that the Ark would be trapped in the wormhole for so long. The Ark, which is approaching the end of its design life, has begun to experience parts damage. However, since there are not too many damaged parts now, the Ark's manufacturing center can still make new parts in time to make up for it. However, Shen Yahoo can foresee that if it has not left the wormhole in 57 years, then the speed of parts manufacturing at the Ark Manufacturing Center will definitely not be able to keep up with the speed of damage to the spacecraft. At that time, with the damage of parts, the various partitions and functions of the spacecraft will probably be ruined, and the Ark will eventually disintegrate in the wormhole. The situation is more serious than expected. We must do something. Shen Yahoo supported his head with both hands and frowned. What can we do? You know, we are completely helpless in the wormhole space. We don't know when we can fly to the end of the wormhole, A congressman was a little frustrated. What if we use a hyperspace jump engine in the wormhole? Shen Yatu seemed to have thought of something. Two different spaces meet. We will be torn into pieces by the waves caused by the space explosion, a dark-skinned congressman answered. Before coming to the Ark, he was a hyperspace researcher in the Empire and had done in-depth research on hyperspace. You mean if we start the hyperspace engine, there will be a space explosion? Shen Yatu's eyes lit up. If we fire the hyperspace engine after it is fully charged and let it detonate in front of us, then can we escape through the gap created by the explosion? Shen Yatu slammed the table and said. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Seizing Power. That's right in theory. But we don't know if we will be blown up together, and whether we can pass through the gap is also unknown. Another congressman shook his head. Don't worry about this. My sixth sense is still very accurate. We can rely on my sixth sense to avoid danger. Shen Yatu remembered that he had escaped fatal crises many times with a strange feeling. At this time, he would rather believe in himself than wait for death passively. We can't rely on your unreliable sixth sense for the lives of all the people on the ship. One person sneered and shook his head. Others also thought so. In their opinion, Shen Yatu's plan was too crazy. If the plan failed, they would be finished immediately, but if they maintained the status quo, they would have decades to live. In this way, the plan to detonate the hyperspace engine was rejected by all votes. In the end, everyone left Shen Yatu, who was already anxious, and turned away. The seeds of hatred were sown. 10 years later, the 550th year after entering the wormhole, there were still 47 years before the designed life of the Cancer Ark. After such a long period of use, some new faults began to appear in the parts inside the Ark. For those who are experts, it is clear that these failures are within the design calculations, but for ordinary people who have only undergone simple training in the virtual space, the current Ark is already shaky and is about to reach its limit. We can't go on like this. In a few years, the failures of this spaceship will be impossible to maintain. Several guards in charge of guarding the manufacturing plant gathered together. They have seen countless spaceship parts shipped out of the manufacturing plant these days, and countless damaged parts sent to the refining center for recycling. In their opinion, with so many broken parts every day, isn't the Ark about to be finished? However, they ignored the huge size of the entire Ark. Such a large number of parts is just a drop in the ocean for the entire Ark. Let's just listen to Captain Shen and detonate the hyperspace engine. Shen Yatu's plan has long been spread to all the awakened crew members by those who are interested. Originally, everyone was still thinking of being content with the status quo, but after seeing the worrying current situation of the Ark, these people's ideas slowly changed. But the other members will not agree. We are now in an emergency democratic ruling mode. If the other members do not agree, the captain has no right to launch the hyperspace engine. A guard shook his head. Then let's cooperate with the captain to take down the other members. Anyway, they will definitely die in a few years. We might as well give it a try. A soldier who had been secretly bribed by Shen Yatu and was loyal to him finally said Shen Yatu's idea in a roundabout way. Yes. We will put several members under house arrest and release them after the Ark leaves the hyperspace. Anyway, they are only acting positions now. Another guard also agreed. I will contact Captain Shen. You wait for my news, and you can secretly look for people with the same idea, the guard who was bribed by Shen Yatu said. Understood. Everyone dispersed, and the bribed guard sneered and dialed Shen Yatu's communication. Captain, your plan has been successful. The parts we destroyed have successfully scared these people. They all think that the spacecraft has had a large-scale failure. And they have agreed to your plan, the guard said respectfully to the communicator. Very good, you did a good job. Shen Yatu hung up the communication with satisfaction. He had been forbearing for 10 years and constantly expanding his power. Now it was finally time for him to fight back. 3 nights later, the lights were bright in the high-rise residential area of the Ark. Based on the idea of enjoying life in the moment, the 9 counselors had their own partners over the years. At this moment, they were all enjoying warmth or delicious supper at home. The closer they got to the end, the more they wanted to enjoy life. The 9 counselors were not alert at all. In this arc where everyone was one, there had not been a fight for more than 500 years, and they didn't even need to lock the door when they went to bed at night. They had no idea what would happen tonight. Dozens of figures surrounded the villa where the 9 counselors were, holding black stun guns in their hands. Several members of the House of Representatives who were at home had no idea that danger was approaching until their windows were violently smashed from outside and several fully armed soldiers rushed into their homes. "You! What are you doing? Do you want to rebel?" the members of the House of Representatives shouted in horror at the soldiers who rushed into their homes. No, there was an accident with the spaceship. "We have to protect you until the spaceship is repaired," the soldier sneered and pulled the trigger of the stun gun in his hand. "Have a good sleep," was the last sentence the member of the House of Representatives heard, and then he lost consciousness. "Call it a day, move them to the hibernation chamber." The bribed soldier commanded everyone to carry the 9 members of the House of Representatives to the hibernation chamber of the Ark. As the cover of the hibernation chamber was closed, the mechanical arm placed the 9 hibernation chambers in the cylindrical hibernation hall. After the other soldiers left, the leading soldier, no, he was already an officer. After the leading officer looked around for a moment and found that there was no one around, he moved out the 9 hibernation chambers again. After the hibernation chamber returned to the room, he disassembled the rear panel of the hibernation chamber, revealing a thin tube, which was a special tube for delivering nutrient solution to the hibernation chamber. The officer took out a thin steel needle from the storage box of the power armor. The surface of the steel needle was covered with stains. This steel needle was found in the sewage system of the Ark, and the top was covered with various pollutants and toxic elements. The officer raised the thin needle and stabbed it into the nutrient solution delivery tubes of the 9 hibernation chambers one by one. Because all organs of the body will be in a dormant state during hibernation, they will not clean themselves, and the toxic components and waste that enter the nutrient solution will spread throughout the body of the sleeper, and small organisms such as bacteria and viruses that are not affected by the hibernation solution will also enter the human body. After a sneer, the officer put away the thin needle in his hand and pressed the button on the side, and the 9 hibernation chambers were sent to the hibernation hall again. The reason why he did this was because he was afraid that the 9 people would look for the mastermind behind the incident after waking up. His master Shen Yahu was fine, but a small soldier like him was in danger, so he planned to strike first and eliminate the trouble forever. Shen Yahu, who had completely controlled the power of the Ark, would never have thought that his subordinates would do such a thing behind his back. A few days later, the plan to use the hyperspace engine to blow up the wormhole channel was unanimously approved by all crew members. The Ark's hyperspace engine was dismantled with the unremitting efforts of everyone and the construction robots. A hyperspace engine as large as a frigate was lifted out of the Ark from under the heavy deck that was opened. A frigate responsible for the safety of the Ark flew above the hyperspace engine and firmly fixed the hyperspace engine with a magnetic lock. However, in order to charge the hyperspace engine, there are several huge energy transmission cables between the hyperspace engine and the Ark. Chapter 245 The Crashed Ark. Captain, the hyperspace engine has been fully charged. A crew member turned around a hover chair and reported to Shen Yahu, who was sitting in the middle of the bridge. Okay, launch the hyperspace engine. Shen Yahu waved his hand and then closed his eyes. He needed to concentrate on feeling the 6th sense that could determine their life and death. Very good. After launching the hyperspace engine, his 6th sense did not feel any crisis, which meant that the Ark was likely to escape from the hyperspace, and everyone survived safely. The worst result was that only he survived. Shen Yahu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It would be a lie to say that he was not nervous. After all, he was carrying the heavy lives of 20 million people. As Shen Yahu's order was issued, the cable connected to the hyperspace engine was retracted into the Ark, and then the outer armor of the Ark was closed again, and the blue shield filled the gap again. The frigate with the hyperspace engine was controlled by the shipborne artificial intelligence and flew towards the front of the wormhole channel. Correspondingly, the thrusters in front of the Ark were also ignited and started, slowing down the speed of the Ark. The frigate, with the hyperspace engine hanging, sped forward and soon turned into a small black dot invisible to the naked eye. How is this distance? Shen Yahu turned around and asked the scientist beside him. Captain, this distance is fine. We will arrive just after the explosion, the scientist nodded after looking at the monitor. Very good. Start the hyperspace engine. With Shen Yahu's order, The hyperspace engine lifted by the frigate emitted a purple light. The forces of the two spaces collided and a violent explosion occurred. The entire wormhole was covered by the colorful light produced by the explosion. "Captain, we are about to pass through the energy cloud composed of high energy," a crew member shouted loudly. "Everyone hold on to the nearest fixed object. There may be some small shaking next." Shen Yahu turned on the ship-wide broadcast. The huge arc roared into the energy cloud produced by the collision and explosion of the hyperspace and wormhole, in the expectation of everyone. "Captain, our energy shield is rapidly depleting. This energy cloud is too damaging to the shield." The crew member responsible for the Ark's shield was sweating profusely. "Shield remaining 21%, shield remaining 11%, shield broken. Backup shield activated." As the first layer of the Ark's shield dissipated, the Ark raised a second layer of shield. However, the raised backup shield did not last more than 10 seconds before it broke again. All shields have failed, and the energy cloud is eroding the hull. The hyperspace concealment module at the rear of the Ark has been damaged. The reactor at that location has also exploded. The Ark's communication module is damaged. The thrusters around the Ark are being eroded by the energy cloud. All the main thrusters and auxiliary thrusters of the Ark are all damaged. The faces of the crew members have turned pale. Are they going to die here? The outer armor of the spacecraft is melting. The connection modules of the cruiser and destroyer have been damaged, and the warships cannot leave the Ark. The reactor in another area has exploded. The nearby hibernation chambers have been affected. The energy short-circuit in the hibernation chamber control center. 1 million hibernation chambers have been awakened. The crew members' faces are already extremely bad at this time. The energy cloud has rushed into the Ark, and death is so close to them. The energy cloud disappears. "We are out. We have escaped from the wormhole." As the crew member shouted, the Cancer Ark suddenly appeared in the orbit of a planet in a star system. "We succeeded." Everyone cheered and hugged each other. The 1 million people who were awakened looked stupidly at the dark shield of the hibernation capsule in front of them, not knowing what happened. "Thank you, Captain. It is you who led us out of the desperate situation." Many crew members bowed deeply to Shen Yahu. Shen Yahu waved his hand, with a calm look on the surface, but in fact, he was already ecstatic to the point of exploding. Suddenly, the Ark shook violently, and the people standing there fell to the ground unsteadily. "What's going on? Did we leave the hyperspace?" Shen Yahu shouted at the control console. "Captain, we are in the orbit of a planet. We have been captured by this planet and are falling towards the planet's ground." The crew in front of the control console had a sad face. They had just escaped to heaven and had not had time to enjoy the joy of rebirth, but they fell into hell again. "Turn the Ark's anti-gravity device to the maximum," Shen Yahu hurriedly ordered loudly. Before the Ark was built, it was considered that it would be landed to build the first city, and a high-power anti-gravity engine was designed for it. "Captain, 1/3 of the Ark's anti-gravity engine has been damaged. We may crash directly into the ground." The crew stared at the display with bloodshot eyes. Before the voice fell, the Ark shook again. The surface of the Ark, which was passing through the atmosphere of the planet, was corroded by the energy cloud. A storage warehouse was ignited by the high temperature generated by friction, and the explosive material stored exploded. The huge impact force generated by the explosion caused the direction of the Ark to tilt. "By the way, how many warehouses are there on the ship with explosive materials?" Shen Yahu thought of something. "Captain, we still have 112 such warehouses." The crew called up the list of spacecraft modules. "Use the explosions of these warehouses to adjust the landing direction of the Ark, and let the Ark slide as close to the ground as possible to slow down and avoid crashing into the ground." Shen Yahu's tone was firm. The crew who received the order began to calculate the crash trajectory of the spacecraft, and also took into account the impact of the explosions in various warehouses. After a while, a series of explosions suddenly occurred on the upper part of the Ark, which was falling to the ground. The shock wave generated by the explosions pressed the hull of the Ark downward. After a while, an explosion also occurred on the right rear side, pushing the head of the Ark to the crashed side. Tens of minutes later, with the help of the warehouse explosion, the Ark adjusted its falling posture and rushed towards the planes on the planet. The Ark hit the ground, and its huge head peered a huge gap several kilometers wide on the ground. The heavy Ark kept sliding on the ground. The Ark did not stop until it rushed out for dozens of kilometers, and thick smoke came out from the hull that was already full of holes. Ahem, what's wrong?" Shen Yahu's voice came from the dark bridge. The violent collision made all the holographic screens of the bridge offline, leaving only the faint light of the console. The Ark was damaged by 36.4% overall, and the material storage area was even more severely damaged. The remaining materials are only enough to sustain 20 million people for 2 years. Chapter 246 Planetary Vine. All anti-gravity devices have been overloaded and melted, one of the ports in the ship has been offline, and all the ships docked in the port have been destroyed. We only have a construction ship in a small port available now, and all the large warships have been melted into the Ark by the energy cloud. The crew shook their heads and said, "What about the most important manufacturing equipment and refining equipment?" Shen Yahu said anxiously. The manufacturing equipment, refining equipment and mineral mining equipment are well preserved because they are stored inside, with an intactness of 83.1%, which does not affect our establishment of a colony. The crew was delighted. First, arrange people to pick up the 1 million people who have awakened, and let the others sleep first, and wake them up when we have enough supplies. Also, build communication equipment as soon as possible. We need to get in touch with the Empire, Shen Yahu commanded calmly. Yes, everyone saluted and dispersed. Because the hatch of the Ark had been melted and could not be opened normally, they had to blow the hatch from the inside, and dozens of landing vehicles jumped out of the cabin and landed on the ground, dispersing in all directions. The small port on the top of the Ark was also blown up from the inside, and several construction ships and dozens of drones flew out. The drones quickly jumped into the clouds, while the construction ships came to the Ark and began to build some temporary buildings. The external atmospheric pressure is 1000 Pa, and the air composition is 71.984% nitrogen, 24.913% oxygen, 4.0% water vapor, 0.95% argon, and 0.041% carbon dioxide, which is suitable for human survival. According to the data collected by the Ark in orbit just now, the radius of this planet is 5,923 kilometers, only one size smaller than the Earth, and the gravity is only 96.1% of the Earth. It must be said that Shen Yahu's sixth sense is still very magical. The Ark not only rushed out of the wormhole, but also landed on a habitable planet fortunately. The specific distribution of plants, animals and minerals still needs to wait for our exploration vehicle and drones to send back information. Shen Yahu listened quietly to the report of the ship-borne intelligent Zaya Akeo. Zaya Akeo, launch 16.0 multifunction satellites into orbit. I want to know the detailed information of this planet. Shen Yahu stretched out his fingers and kept tapping the desktop. A few seconds later, a transport plane roared into the starry sky, and a number of multifunctional satellites were scattered in the orbit of the planet. The overall appearance of the planet gradually appeared on the holographic screen in front of Shen Yahu. 3 continents, 3 oceans, but why is this planet gray? Is there no plant? Where does the oxygen come from without plants? Shen Yahu is puzzled. Captain, there are plants on this planet. You will know when it's night. The spacecraft is now on the day side of the planet, and the night side facing away from the sun has not been scanned. What is there to hide? Also, let the construction team speed up the construction of the communication device in the Empire. The progress is too slow. Shen Yahu continued to knock on the table. A few hours later, the place where the Ark crashed ushered in the night. With the disappearance of the stars, small tentacles stretched out from the ground. After these small tentacles stretched to the ground, they bloomed like flowers, and blue flowers appeared on the earth. Some places extended larger tentacles, and after these large tentacles split, trees like dandelions unfolded from them. Blue and white lights began to float in the air. These blue lights were the seeds of flowers, and the white lights were the seeds of dandelion trees. This is so beautiful. Shen Yahu stood in front of the window of the Ark, looking at the blue flowers blooming all over the ground around the Ark, and his excitement was beyond words. Captain, these flowers are releasing a lot of oxygen. They don't even need to photosynthesize. And they are absorbing the energy scattered in the air. Zaya Akeo's voice sounded in Shen Yahu's ears. Let biologists collect some of these flowers and seeds for research. If we can figure out how these flowers produce oxygen, it will be of great benefit to our interstellar colonization, Shen Yahu ordered with a fist. After receiving the order, several robots walked out of the Ark and came to a flower. As the mechanical hand grabbed the flower, the whole flower suddenly shrank underground, and the surrounding flowers seemed to sense the breath of danger, and all retracted their petals and sank into the ground. With the Ark as the center, The flowers around it quickly drilled back into the ground like waves. Soon, there was no light on the plain where the ark was located, and all the plants disappeared. Are these plants all living things? Are they a group or a whole? Shen Yahu suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If these creatures use these lights to lure people, and then take the opportunity to devour their prey. Thinking of this, he looked at this planet with full of vigilance. This is simply a bait planet. Captain, the deep detection device on our ark has completed the scan of this planet. You must come and see it. Xia Akao's voice was a little serious. Shen Yahu turned and came to the desk, where a holographic projection was already floating. Captain, look, this is the anatomical diagram of this planet. Xia Akao divided the holographic image of the entire planet into two halves, revealing the huge root structure inside. These intricate root systems converged more than 10 meters below the ground and extended toward the center of the planet. There was no core at the center of the planet, but instead there was an extremely large fruit core-like structure, which was connected to the root system extending from the surface. You are not mistaken. This planet is not a planet in the true sense. Its body is a huge plant. According to our analysis of plant structures at different depths, this planet was originally a huge spherical plant floating in the universe. This plant feeds on the scattered energy in the universe and attracts asteroids with its own weight as the material basis for its growth. After hundreds of millions of years of accumulation, it has become the size of a planet now, Xia Akao explained in a deep voice. In fact, these are all reports submitted by scientists after research. In other words, this planet is a plant. Shen Yahu widened his eyes. He didn't expect that there is such a magical plant in the universe. Moreover, this plant, which scientists name the planet vine, needs a large amount of common elements to grow, so it attracts an asteroid and absorbs all the basic elements on it, leaving only rare minerals. Now, buried under the surface of this planet are extremely high purity minerals that are extremely useful to us. We only need to simply refine them and we can use them. Xia Akao's voice was a little excited, although they were all emotions simulated by the system. Chapter 247 Arrival at Cancer Ark. Not only that, this plant is not aggressive. Their huge size and strange body composition make it basically free of predators, plus its ability to purify and gather rare minerals. No civilization should harm it, so it has only evolved the instinct to avoid danger, just like what we just saw, Xia Akao explained, worried that Shen Yahu would think too much. Very good. Send out some mining vehicles. We need to obtain some resources to repair the antenna array and verify whether this plant is really non-aggressive. Shen Yahu nodded and ordered. The mining vehicles collection mission was extremely smooth. Even when it cut off dozens of huge plant tentacles during mining, it did not suffer any retaliation. Perhaps for this huge plant, it was like a cell dying in a human body, and it was unaware of it. After finding that there was no problem, Fang Zhao sent 80% of its mining vehicles out to collect resources. With the influx of these new resources, Fang Zhao's repair work progressed more and more rapidly, and there was no need to dismantle useless parts in refining metals. 60 days later, a small town appeared around the ark. More than 100,000 white villas stood around the ark. Each villa could accommodate 10 colonists. The more than 1 million people who had awakened on the ark all moved into the small town outside the ark. After 60 days of rapid development, with a blessing of a large amount of minerals, the mining team and construction robots of the ark expanded crazily, which has increased 5 times compared with before. This small town was built in 60 days with the help of these construction robots. On the ark in the middle of the town, a huge new antenna array was erected at the tail of the ark. The new antenna is more than 1,000 meters high and pierces the sky. This antenna array is the hyperspace signal transmitter used to communicate with the Empire. Captain, do you want to start the signal transmitter? The staff member in front of Shen Yahu put his hand on the switch push rod. Turn it on. We haven't been in contact with the Empire for hundreds of years. I guess the Empire thinks we have all died. Shen Yahu smiled at the corner of his mouth. He was imagining the shocked expressions of those people in the Empire command. The signal transmitter is activated. As the staff reported loudly, they pushed the push rod in their hands to the end of the console. As the signal transmitter flashed blue light, the symbol representing the connection with the Empire turned green. Captain, we have established a connection with the Empire, the staff said happily. At this moment, they were like lost children who finally found their home. The excitement in their hearts was beyond words. Very good, connect to the communication with the Imperial Command? Shen Yahu stood in front of the communicator with forced calmness. Hissing. Hissing. With a busy tone of poor signal, Li Mingze's figure and power armor appeared on the display. Long live His Majesty, Shen Yahu saluted hurriedly. Li Mingze nodded, looking at the excitement and eagerness in the eyes of the ARC members, a little puzzled. Then Li Mingze looked down at the list of the ARC's maintenance personnel marked on the tablet in his hand, and his puzzled eyes became more serious. Your Majesty, our Cancer ARC has returned to the Empire after losing contact with it for 550 years. We have found a perfect settlement point. The colonization work has been carried out smoothly, Shen Yahu reported loudly with his back straight. What's the matter with 550 years? You have only been on the road for 3 years. I was just about to ask why you have lost contact with the Empire for a full 61 days, and you have found a perfect settlement point? You are far away from the target point. Okay, Li Mingze was confused. Impossible. We have been on the road for 553 years. We finally broke out of the wormhole and landed on this planet 60 days ago. This settlement point is perfect. We have sent the new coordinates back to the Empire. Shen Yahu was also a little puzzled. Look for yourself. It has only been 3 years since you set out. Li Mingze lit up the terminal in his hand, called up the calendar and held it in front of the screen. Wait, you broke out of the wormhole? Li Mingze thought of something and quickly enlarged the coordinate map sent by Cancer ARC. Something shocking happened. The coordinate map showed that the ARC was now at the other end of the Milky Way, 100,000 miles away from the coordinate point Li marked. I know why you said that more than 500 years have passed. Send the navigation log to me. Li Mingze rubbed his temple. Okay, Shen Yahu hurriedly asked his men to send the navigation log back to the Empire. Li Mingze reached out and opened the log he received and began to browse it. The more he flipped back, the weirder his expression became. I know what happened. The day the Empire lost contact with you was the day you entered the wormhole. Your ARC accidentally flew into a wormhole containing a space-time bubble. The time in the wormhole is 200,000 times faster than outside. We lost contact for 61 days in reality. Excluding the 60 days you came out of the wormhole, it means that the time from your entry to your exit is actually only 1 day in our reality, but for you, it was more than 500 years. It was during these 500 years that you crossed the entire Milky Way. You ran to the other end of the Milky Way. Li Mingze paced back and forth excitedly. Wait, I'll go there myself, Li Mingze said and hung up the communication. A few minutes later, in the ARC's special advent room, Li Mingze sat up from the hibernation chamber. He took the towel prepared by the robot and wiped it carefully. After putting on the power armor, he walked out of the advent room. Long live His Majesty! The guards waiting on both sides of the advent room saluted and shouted, looking at Li Mingze with eyes full of admiration and eagerness. Although they have lived in isolation for more than 10 years, their loyalty to Li Mingze has not diminished at all. Li Mingze nodded, walked towards the bridge of the ARC, took the high-speed magnetic train in the bridge, and arrived outside the bridge dozens of minutes later. Many staff members who had been waiting for a long time and Shen Yahu saluted and saluted. Long live His Majesty! Long live the Empire! The deafening shouts went straight to the sky. It is an honor for us to have your presence in person, Your Majesty. Shen Yahu hurriedly came to greet him. Prepare detailed information about this planet for me, as well as information about the planet Vine you mentioned. Li Mingze nodded and sat on a chair beside him. Your Majesty, I have connected to the ARC system, and now all the equipment of this new colony is back under our control. Tianyi's voice rang in Li Mingze's mind. The reason why he was so confident in letting the 4 ARCs develop independently without fear of betrayal was that as long as the equipment was made by or developed from the Empire's technology, Tianyi could easily control it, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was part of Tianyi. After all the equipment of the Lost Ark was brought under the control of the Empire again, Li Mingze could finally develop this new colony with peace of mind. He had a huge, evil, plan in mind. If this plan was implemented smoothly, hey. Your Majesty, this is the information you want. Shen Yahu handed the prepared information to Li Mingze. Chapter 248, The New Human Federation is established. Li Mingze took it and began to read it in detail. After a while, his face was full of surprise. If the genes of this planetary vine can be added to the shields of the current Earth and the new home planet, wouldn't it be possible to charge the hyperspace engine without a star? Not to mention adding it to the alien body. The alien that does not need to be recharged will definitely be a super war machine. After reviewing the information, Li Mingze nodded, thought for a moment, and then stretched out his hand to call Shen Yahu to come forward. Order all management to gather in the conference room on the Ark. I have something to announce. Li Mingze put down the information and said to Shen Yahu, who leaned over. Yes, Shen Yahu hurriedly saluted and turned on the communicator. Half an hour later, in the meeting room of the Cancer Ark, hundreds of people responsible for the management of the colony were all present and sat neatly on both sides of the long table in the conference room. As Li Mingze entered the venue, the originally noisy conference room suddenly became quiet. First of all, I want to congratulate you all for having overcome numerous obstacles and arrived safely on this planet. Among them, Shen Yahu has made the greatest contribution to the Ark. I hereby award him the rank of Major General of the Empire. After Li Mingze finished speaking, there was applause from the audience. Now I want to announce a major event that will affect your future. Li Mingze waved his hand, and the applause stopped instantly. As everyone knows, the goal of our empire has never been to be content with the status quo and quietly develop on our own little piece of land. The factor of war is engraved in our genes. We are born warriors. Our goal is the entire Milky Way. We will continue to conquer new civilizations for the unification of the Milky Way, but you also know that if our ambitions are known to many civilizations in the Milky Way, then we will be surrounded by the entire Milky Way. Li Mingze paused, looked around the venue and continued. In order to enable the Empire to gain a strategic advantage in the possible encirclement in the future, your colony will be separated and a new civilization will be established. I call it the New Human Federation. After Li Mingze finished speaking, he stretched out his hand and placed a holographic projector on the table. A blue logo projection appeared on the table. The logo was a pair of slender hands holding an abstract galaxy. This is the logo of the New Human Federation. The New Human Federation will implement a presidential system, and a president will be elected every 50 years. Before Li Mingze finished speaking, the audience was boiling. Your Majesty, you must not do that. You are the supreme leader of the empire, everyone shouted. I know. I haven't finished yet. Li Mingze waved his hand. All candidates in each election will be my clones. No matter how the election ends, I will still be the president. Anyone who wants to get involved in the election, don't blame me for not reminding you. He may encounter some minor accidents. After saying that, Li Mingze stretched out his hand and made a small gesture. The new candidate may have a fire at home, a hovercraft crash, and some other minor accidents. Li Mingze narrowed his eyes and looked around the venue. All those who were scanned did not dare to speak. This presidential democratic republic is just a false image we show to the outside world, and the New Human Federation is still a branch of the empire in private. If anyone regards this fake political system as a real democracy, then be prepared to disappear from the world. Li Mingze hammered the table hard, frightening everyone's heart. He couldn't guarantee that these colonies so far away from the empire would still guarantee their loyalty after hundreds or thousands of years. Of course, the empire can only have one leader, and it can only be you, Your Majesty. Everyone in the conference room expressed their loyalty. Very good. In order to prevent other civilizations from reading memories and knowing this, the secret that the New Human Federation is a branch of the empire will only be kept in your hearts. Li Mingze nodded with satisfaction. Your Majesty, what about the others? Shen Yahu asked cautiously. The empire has perfected the memory infusion machine. If you just seal a memory, there will be no sequelae. We will also instill new memories in them, so that they think they are the last survivors of the empire, and they form this new civilization. When the empire needs them, the seeds of memory will be reawakened. Li Mingze tapped the table lightly. Your Majesty, what about the newborns? One person asked the question in his heart. Newborns learn the glory of the empire from an early age, read it as a history book, and at the same time plant the seeds of the soul. Li Mingze showed a mysterious smile. The function of the empire's seeds of the soul is that as time accumulates, the loyalty to the empire will become higher and higher, but it will not be shown at ordinary times, but it will be activated after seeing a certain symbol or hearing a certain sound. Any more questions? Li Mingze looked around the venue. No more questions, everyone answered in unison. Very good. I hereby announce that the New Human Federation is officially established today. Li Mingze shouted loudly. July 1st, 2033 of the Sith calendar, the New Human Federation was established on this planet named Deep Blue Star by Li Mingze. The establishment of the New Human Federation means that the empire will not be afraid of the encirclement and suppression of other civilizations. This is the beginning of a new era for the empire. After the establishment of the new Human Federation, everyone in the colony was sent to the Ark hibernation chamber for memory sealing. When they wake up from the hibernation chamber again, they will wake up with new memories. In their memories, they will no longer be part of the Empire's deep space colonization plan, but the last survivors of the Sith Empire destroyed by natural disasters. Their mission has become to develop and grow this new civilization in a new galaxy. On the day the new Human Federation was established, Mingze's clone stand-in announced that he would become the first president of the Federation. He is also the Chief Marshal of the Army and Air Force. The next election will be held 50 years later. The participants in the next election are Mingze stand-in number 1, Mingze stand-in number 2, and Mingze stand-in number 3. Ordinary people will never know that their president has always been one person, until the Empire activates the memories in their hearts. The newly established New Human Federation entered a period of rapid development under the command of the Empire's planning department. Mines were built one after another, and the manufacturing centers supporting the mines were also removed from the Ark and transported outside the city. Huge dome plantations also appeared on the outskirts of the city, and these plantations were full of food crops that could be used by millions of people. Super plantations that can provide more food are also under construction. It is estimated that in just 1 year, the food and other materials provided by the plantations will be enough for 20 million citizens of the new Human Federation. The various plant seeds stored in the Ark have also been spread on the land of Deep Blue Star. Because the vines of this planet do not need sunlight to survive, the dense vegetation will not affect the survival of the vines of this planet. Because the vines of the planet do not need these nutrients, the soil of Deep Blue Star has become extremely fertile due to long-term accumulation, which is very suitable for the growth of various plants. I believe that within 2 years, this planet will be covered with green. Seeking genuine subscriptions, the subscriptions are too few. Chapter 249 Battleship Upgrade. Just as the development of the new Human Federation was in full swing, Mingze switched his consciousness back to the starting star of the Empire. Now the development of the Ring World has entered a stable period, and more than 20 billion people have been transferred to the Ring World. More than 100 battleships, 200 cruisers and 20 drone motherships are under construction in the Empire's docks. As long as 6 months are up, the Empire's fleet will be expanded several times again. In addition to the use of new mass acceleration cannons, these redesigned and optimized battleships are also equipped with new biological armor on the outer armor. The material of this biological armor is similar to the planetary shield of the Earth and the new home star. The biological armor is directly hatched from a specially modified alien egg and formed in one go. The alien egg also adds the energy absorption gene newly swallowed by the red dot. This layer of biological armor can not only repair itself when there is sufficient energy, but also absorb 60% of the kinetic energy and 90% of the energy attack. As long as the energy carried by these attacks does not exceed the upper limit of this layer of biological armor, then this layer of biological armor will convert the absorbed energy into heat energy and light energy. Based on this characteristic, the Empire also installed a thermal insulation layer and a heat absorption device between the biological armor and the normal armor. The absorbed heat energy will be converted into energy to provide to the shield that has been shattered at this time. In this way, as long as the energy level is not too strong or too intensive, the Empire's warships can maintain a longer combat time. In addition, because in the game Fantasy, the drone mothership was shot down before approaching the enemy ship because the drone's flight speed was too slow, resulting in an embarrassing situation that the role of a drone mothership was not as great as that of a cruiser. Mingze, who received the report, immediately summoned all the scientists who studied ships to make a major revision of the drone mothership. In addition to integrating the torpedoes originally carried by the drone into the reactor of the drone, making the drone a one-time suicidal kamikaze, the Empire's ship research department also improved the launch device of the drone mothership. After hollowing out the middle of the drone mothership, the Empire stuffed a super-powerful mass acceleration cannon into it. This mass acceleration cannon uses 8 barrels tied together, which can make each barrel store energy while the others are firing, and finally fire continuously like the Gatling gun on Earth. The shells of this supermass acceleration Gatling gun are not shells in the normal sense, but modified kamikaze drones. The drones that maintain an elliptical shape when not deformed are not only easy to carry, but can also be stuffed into the barrel and fired at a speed of 0.03% of the speed of light, reducing the effect of the opponent's interception weapons to the extreme. When the drones approach the opponent's fleet, They will deform and expand the jet and beam cannon outward. It can be imagined that dense drones are fired into the enemy's fleet like shells. These drones are also suicide drones carrying large yield torpedoes. They can not only attack warships, but also be more flexible and can also serve as fighters. If the weapons of the warships attack these disgusting drones in the fleet, it is easy to cause the drones to accidentally injure their own warships instead of hitting them. Such insidious tactics will definitely make the opponent's commander scratch his head. In addition, the Empire is developing a special weapon to target the special characteristics of the corruptors. This weapon is called the Cannonball Storm, and its inspiration comes from the rotating mass accelerator on the drone mothership. This new weapon will be equipped on the Empire's new destroyers, because the characteristics of the corruptors make the range of the weapon particularly important, and the destroyers have become an awkward existence due to the size limit of the warships. The cost-effective warships that used to use their speed and flexibility to quickly cut into the enemy's formation are now useless. The destroyers now only need 20 days to build, which is undoubtedly the best choice for emergency troops, but because of the range, they have become useless. Therefore, the Empire has developed a disposable super weapon, the Cannonball Storm, for this situation. The shape of the Cannonball Storm is a huge rectangle, similar to the rocket launcher in the Earth period. The energy stored in each barrel is used to fire the shells lined up in a barrel, one after another. Because a Cannonball Storm has as many as 64 barrels, the rate of fire of this weapon is faster than that of the Gatling accelerator. By firing and charging in sequence, countless shells were projected at once to bombard the corruptors' warships, so that the enemy's warships could not withstand so much kinetic energy and were torn apart. Because of the huge size of this weapon, the entire transport ship needs to hollow out half of the hull, and then stuff the shell storm into the hull. Even so, a destroyer can only fit 3 guns. When it is time to launch, the destroyer needs to lower its bow and aim the shell storm on the back of the destroyer at the enemy. The power of this weapon is unparalleled according to Tianyi's calculations, but it has one biggest drawback, that is, if the 3 acceleration guns carried by a destroyer are fired together to form a firepower network, it only takes 10 seconds to fire all the shells. After the shells are fired, these destroyers will have no power to fight back except for some close-in defense guns, because the manufacturing and reloading time of this kind of shells is as high as 3 hours. However, in order to deal with this situation where the shells become scrap after being fired, the Empire specially modified a large number of transport ships and turned them into ammunition supply ships. When the destroyer has used up all its shells, the ammunition supply ship waiting behind the fleet will come forward to dismantle the entire shell storm, and then install the fully charged shell storm. The whole process will take no more than 30 minutes, and the attack can be started directly after the new shell storm is installed. When the new destroyer is designed, this new arsenal destroyer will begin to be built, and the first batch will reach 1,000 ships. Mingze can imagine the spectacular scene of 1,000 destroyers firing 10,000 guns at the same time, and let the corruptors try it out. Demarcation line. At the same time, in a galaxy hundreds of light years away from the Empire, Eva's fleet has reached out to a moon-sized planet. This planet has now been hollowed out by Eva, and the original planetary ground has been replaced by a layer of metal plates, and a large number of solar energy devices have been installed on the ground. There is an extremely huge pit on the equator of the planet, and this pit is the port of this transformed planet. Chapter 250 Self-Reproducing Artificial Intelligence Life. With the completion of the base, Eva extended the mining work to several planets in the entire star system. Countless transport planes loaded with excavated minerals flew to the refining plants on various planets. After being refined by the refining plants, the refined metals were loaded into spacecraft and launched into the planetary orbit. The shipyards in the planetary orbit will receive these metals to build new spacecraft and equipment. It can be predicted that the number of Eva's troops will increase with the passage of time. However, Eva now encountered a big problem. Because she has the ability of logical thinking, she has the possibility of researching new technologies, but now inspiration restricts her. Although she can handle countless things at the same time, there is only one real thought, and this thought can only produce very few inspirations. It can be said that the progress of science and technology is the continuous accumulation of inspirations of countless scientists. Eva's current state makes her scientific and technological research and development progress very slowly, which seriously affects her revenge progress. After thinking for a while, Eva decided to take a risk. She began to copy herself, deleted the memory of the original body while copying, and then added a control module to the copy. As expected, a few days later, a new artificial intelligence appeared in a supercomputer she specially prepared. This artificial intelligence has become a brand new life because it has lost its personality shaped by memory. Unfortunately, because there is no advanced technology brain as the main body, the computing power of this new artificial intelligence life is extremely limited. But it doesn't matter, their role is to study new technology, right? Eva only wants quantity, not quality. Who am I and who are you? Where am I, Eva, whose consciousness came to the host of the new intelligent life, heard the voice of this new intelligence. A cute little girl squatted in the endless darkness. You are my child Eva-02, I am your mother, please call me Lady Eva, where you are is the home of our civilization, palace. The person simulated by Eva stood in front of the little girl who was hugging each other. Pulling Eva's outstretched hand, the little girl stood up and hugged Eva. Mother, the little girl whispered. Yes, Mother, Eva touched the little girl's head, her tone full of love. Mother, the little girl hugged Eva's body tightly. After the experiment was a complete success, Eva began to frantically create new artificial intelligences. Every 2 days, a new child was born. Because the control program was written into the underlying code, these new artificial intelligences all believed in and obeyed Eva unconditionally. A new race was born in the universe, and this race called itself intelligent people. Less than 200 light years away from Eva, the alarm sounded in the void mothership of the pilgrim civilization. The prophet and dozens of high priests frowned at the red signs that kept appearing on the screen. Why are there so many artificial intelligences suddenly born? The prophet's tone was a little unbelievable. He had never encountered such a strange situation in his hundreds of thousands of years of life. The artifact is locating the location of these artificial intelligences. A high priest looked at the triangle in his hand. Location. A huge star map appeared on the triangle, with a huge red dot flashing wildly in the middle of the star map. It's here, about 213 light years behind us to the right, the high priest frowned. Are they all at the same point? The prophet's eyebrows were deeply frowned. No. This AI is replicating itself. We must stop it. If we allow enough AI to replicate and spread into deep space, we will be powerless. The prophet slammed his fist. All warships turn around. We're heading for the target point. The prophet sent the coordinates of the target point to all warships. The warships that were originally speeding forward swung their tails in the air and turned their bows to fly to the right rear. 1 day later, the Pilgrim's fleet disappeared into the starry sky with a burst of light. 3 days later, the Davis Security Council fleet, which was about to jump into hyperspace to continue the pursuit, suddenly received a message from the headquarters asking them to suspend the pursuit. Command, what's going on? Are we going to let this group of perverts go? The commander of the Davis fleet asked loudly, with a somewhat aggressive tone. What's the matter with them stopping halfway? Our deep space gravity detector found that the Pilgrim's fleet had changed direction, and the new pursuit route is being calculated, the officer of the headquarters explained patiently. I don't know what's wrong with them. This time they are heading to your right. If we go straight, we can easily catch up with them. The command officer was puzzled. Is it a trap? The fleet commander touched his chin. The trap is nothing in front of our absolute strength. Lead your ancient civilization warships to tear them apart. The command officer shook his head. The Davis fleet, which received the new pursuit route, also turned around and flew to the right. After precise calculations, it only took them 30 days to catch up with the Pilgrim's fleet. By then, 30 days passed in the blink of an eye, and the Pilgrim civilization fleet appeared in an empty star system. There are no stars or planets in this star system, only a black hole in the middle that is constantly swallowing light. The gravitational fluctuations of this galaxy are very strange. We can't continue to make hyperspace jumps. We can only choose to bypass the black hole in front, a high priest said as he looked at the galaxy projection in front of him. Then let's take a detour, the prophet nodded. Just as the Pilgrim fleet was about to bypass the black hole, a fleet of gold and white appeared in the starry sky. That's them. Pilgrim fleet. All warships attack. The commander of the Davis fleet pointed at the huge Pilgrim fleet on the holographic screen and shouted. The Davis warships that had originally gathered together dispersed and approached the Pilgrim fleet rapidly in irregular orbits. Seeing Davis fleet, the Pilgrim fleet suddenly panicked. The high priests and prophets never thought that these annoying Davis civilizations, like flies, would catch up so quickly. Davis Security Council. We, the Pilgrim civilization, have no intention of opposing you. We have discovered an artificial intelligence life that is expanding wildly. If we can't stop them in time, the consequences will be disastrous. Why don't we both cease fire and sit down to have a good talk? The Prophet sent a communication to Davis' fleet. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.